Chandler with a beautiful shot. Dan Hooker is down and he is hurt.
Oh! Chandler's got him marked. Chandler by TKO. Wow! What a debut by Michael Chandler. UFC lightweight. Holy smokes! Oh! He put him down. Dustin Warren beats Conor McGregor. Has done it. He put down. Stephen A. Smith, watch this fight. That's the best 155-pounder I've ever seen. Oh, he knocks him down. Hand by Francis. He's got him hurt. He's going after the finish. Big uppercut from Ngannou. Stipe engages. Oh, he dropped him. Ngannou's your champion. Francis Ngannou's the heavyweight champion. Stipe cool. Wow. What a finish, man. 9-1 on the night. 8-2 in the question mark kicks parlay hit. Fight night hit. Wow. Wow. Francis Ngannou. Holy smokes. Oh, man, give him the stool. Who knew Patient Francis? A scary man. Let's get into it. Wow. Oh boy, Matt, and just like that, we're back with the UFC 261 Fight Companion. Some technical issues to start, but we got them sorted out, and it wasn't a connection issue. Sometimes OBS just likes to get a little bit tricky and a little bit wonky, and that's what happened in front of me. But I'm about as red as I am in some of those previews. I'm really looking forward to this card. It's always a shame when those technical issues happen, but we worked through them, and it seems like everybody's back in the comment section. Everybody is upset at the judges, and hey, it happens, but overall, Matt, love the fights tonight.
Oh yeah, the prelims have more than delivered. And getting this main card started, we have Anthony Smith versus Jim Crute. No longer Jim in it anymore. I don't know if you broke that news. You might have been the first person to say that. No longer going by Jimmy. One of my best friends, Tim Rose, called him Timmy, and then about grade 8, he was like, guys, it's Tim now, so I can relate to that. But no, this is a main event quality fight as our opener for this pay-per-view, because Anthony Smith really only fights in 5-round fights. I understand his last fight wasn't a 5-round fight, but it was still a main event. Like, that's the type of fighter Anthony Smith is. When he's in there, normally you're paying for a 5-round type of a fight, but we finally have him in a 3-round atmosphere, and this is one of those great kind of crossroads fights. You have the established Anthony Smith, really just good everywhere, against Jimmy Crute, who, see, I haven't made the mistake, it's now Jim, but I know what Jim Crute does well, but I do feel like there's another portion of his game that we haven't seen yet. I kind of joked how, like, Robert Whittaker and Max Holloway take the nicest pictures in gis, but we never really see them use their jiu-jitsu until Robert Whittaker was like, hey, gonna put that to use. We might see a new and improved version of Anthony Smith and of Jim Crute as well.
Absolutely love the fight, and I mean, we got the man himself sitting behind us, the old UFC Moncton poster, but overall, such a good card. I mean, Joe Dirt all over the judges, Woke Kyle saying incredible prelims, and Jake the MMA fan 1997. Can't wait for Rose Whaley. Gonna be a banger. Don saying Seklish got hosed. Listen, I'm going to disagree with a lot of people on that one. And I thought Grant had round 1 and round 2. Listen, the takedowns, they didn't really accomplish a whole lot, but we can agree to disagree. And we're going to move on because we have the best fight fans out there in the sport tuning in and hanging out over there in the comment section. Chris saying my dad is Jim Crute. Yeah, Jimmy making the Jim switch. And yeah, it is what it is. Ali Hamoud saying, do you think the rest of the favorites will win tonight? Well, if memory serves me correct, we do have Crute. In the next fight, I mean, it is a great one. We both had Hall. It is a tricky one. And then from there on out, we still had the and stills in those fights. So it should be interesting. Michael Raup brings up a great point. He was hanging out over in question mark kicks before the card kicked off with some really great points. But great to see the next champ, Covington, is in the house. Do you think that Covington will get the next shot at the belt?
I'm pretty sure Dana White said he would, so hopefully he will stick to his word. Here's the thing. No matter what you feel about Colby Covington as the person, like, he should be fighting Usman tonight and not Masvidal. Because here's the thing. Masvidal didn't even fight anybody after Usman. Just not beat the brakes off him, but basically shut him out. I know beating Tyron Woodley isn't the most impressive thing to do, but you just gotta look at the way Colby Covington beat him. It was the same way Usman beat him. It was the same way Burns beat him. And Burns got a title shot by doing to Woodley what Covington did to Woodley. So no matter how you feel about Colby Covington, the person, you still have to respect what he does in the cage. Like, some of the best output we've seen in UFC history, especially for a welterweight. He never gets tired, and he's one of the best wrestlers out there. So I think that would be a compelling matchup, especially if we do get Masvidal versus Covington. That would be a very interesting fight, especially if that was for the title. You can only imagine what the build-up for that fight would be. But I do think Covington should be the next in line for the title shot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And for some reason, error on a playback. Well, that's never good. Just every single technical issue we could have. I mean, it seems to be working. Now end stream connect. Now we're back on. I don't know what's going on. We're having weird technical issues. I don't know. We'll see it through. But overall, it's working on the computer. Wasn't working in front of us. Sean V is saying, let's get into it. And Joshua Hart saying, Matt is just 4 wins away from getting 100 correct picks in 2021.
We're getting there.
It is an insane year so far in MMA. And listen, I mean, last night we had the PFL. Today we had KSW. I mean, Phil DeFries just absolutely pounding out Tomasz Narkun. If he got lucky to get those odds, he was what, a minus 185 going into that? It was absolutely insane. And Stick00073 saying that we're good now. But Joshua Hart doing the Lord's work over on the website, fightnamepicks.com. All sorts of great interview write-ups. You get the editorial work over there. You've got the full card betting guide as well. And so far, the question mark kicks parlay has been, well, I mean, 1 out of 2 already hit. Randy Brown with that arm in rear naked choke.
One arm.
He was able to really kind of pop off in that fight. And the worry was, listen, those leg kicks were a story early for Oliveira. It was something that we were kind of keen on seeing. Could Oliveira expose it? He did early. Randy Brown wins that nice right hand down the pipe, and the fight totally changes from there.
Oh, 100%. Cowboy Oliveira is one of those weird fighters where if you have a weakness, he is going to find it. Now, can he exploit it enough to get the win in all of his matchups? Well, no. He is kind of one of those mid-tier fighters, but he's one of those rare few who, it doesn't matter who he fights. Alex Oliveira can fight Colby Covington tomorrow. Is he going to win? No. But I'm definitely going to bet on him to have at least a moment in that fight where you're like, oh, I'm a little bit nervous. But for Randy Brown, it was just great to see him overcome Alex Oliveira. In his last fight, didn't go his way against Luque. You could tell that was too much. And just the overall striking of Vicente was a little bit too much for Randy Brown. That's too much for most guys in the UFC, though, so it's just a really great rebound fight for him. The fact that Randy Brown went from getting finished in the second round in his last fight to winning by first round finish, just a great rebound for a fighter who I really do think his skill set's one of those ones that if he keeps on building upon what he already has, he could be a real player in this division down the road.
Apparently, you can scan to get Modelo delivered if you're hanging out watching the regular fight card. I don't know why they gave Jim Crute this picture because it just weirds everything out, but that's the one that they chose. They didn't go side profile. They went big and brooding. I kind of played around with it when we actually made the, the view that we're normally going to get. But when we have a look at this fight, Matt, with Anthony Smith, much higher level of competition for Jim Crute, the only loss, the 1-2. Listen, the Canadian, Misha Serkinov, in a fight where he had success quick, and the whole fight was quick, but he had success. He was able to really rock Serkinov, and from there, Serkinov just kind of zombied through it. He used his weight and his pressure to get the win, and he ultimately submitted Jim Crute. Crute comes back and looks absolutely great in his last 2, so it'll be interesting to see how he can impose his will in a fight like this against Anthony Smith.
It really will. The fact that I feel like we talked about this when it comes to Kama Worthy, but nobody else. The amount of times that he had been finished, and yes, it mattered because he's fought in 2 different weight classes, and I did think that the weight cut down to 45, you look, a lot of his finishes happen at 45. With Anthony Smith, though, guys don't get TKO'd 8 times in their careers and then go on to become world champs. And the fact that he became really close to getting the title, like, he could have won an Aljamain Sterling UFC belt. He could have taken that way out against John Jones, and I guess we would have been talking about Anthony Smith as a champ. But guys like him aren't supposed to have that end-of-career resurgence like he has had. And we have seen him kind of struggle at 180, or at 205, I should say. I do feel like we've kind of seen what his ceiling is. He's a very good 205er, but not a great 205er. And that's what makes this fight so fun, because the term Crossroads MMA gets thrown out there a lot, but this really is a crossroads fight, because for Jim Crute, I know that you can't out-grapple Misha Serkinov in a pure grappling scramble. Again, most guys in the UFC aren't going to be able to beat Misha where he is his best, and the fact that Jim Crute, it's not like he lost to Serkinov because he got dropped and then submitted. Like, he looked good until he didn't. And against Smith is a great grappler, but he's not a great wrestler. And Misha Serkinov, that's one thing that he does have. He does have the transition between the striking and the grappling. So for Smith, I think if he gets backed up against the cage, it's just going to be a lot of him reacting to what Jim Crute's throwing at him. And the fact Smith is really good at outlasting strikers in a 5-round atmosphere. Just look at the poster behind me against Volkan Oezdemir. If that was a 3-round fight, he probably would have lost that fight, but since it was 5, he was able to outlast him and finish him. He's not going to have that luxury in this fight.
To go over to the comments section, Made 2K saying, will Randy Brown get a ranked opponent next? For me, you look at it, 15, Robbie Lawler. Is he going to take the fight? Most likely not. I mean, maybe have a rematch of like a 2017 fight, Bilal Muhammad, Randy Brown. Maybe that's when you get up for. You move up the list, it's really difficult, so that's all I can think of. Anthony's saying pre-fight shotgun for the boys. Anthony, I'm going to burst your bubble. I've got a Coke Energy, and I've got Smart Water, and I've got about a sip left of an AHA sparkling water, so there's not going to be any popping of cans here. But Matt, when we're focusing on this fight with Anthony Smith and Jim Crute, you know, you can talk about it till the cows come home. Crute, obviously the bigger fighter. You talk about it. The technician being Anthony Smith with all of those weird things that he can kind of throw at you. You don't like the way that he backs up. When he advances and blitzes, he usually does quite well. And his slick jiu-jitsu, as we're getting to see on screen, you see that triangle that he had on Devin Clark, a guy who's primarily known as a wrestler, less as a grappler. It was great. Against a guy like Jim Crute, I would almost expect that if Anthony Smith gets the win, second round, third round, maybe that's what you're expecting. I don't really see him getting a first round finish over Jim Crute in this one.
He could. Here's the thing about Anthony Smith, Jim Crute. It's going to come down to, can Anthony Smith time him on the way in? Because Jim Crute, I would assume, is going to be the one moving forward as they show that brutal finish of Modestas Bukauskas. But that's the thing. I think Jim Crute has the better hand speed out of these two guys, even though Anthony Smith's stand-up might be a little bit more polished. But when you just look at the pure power of Jim Crute, like you had said, he is a massive 205er. Like, he's one of the bigger light heavyweights out there. And the fact that he is fighting a middleweight moving up in weight. Now, yes, Anthony Smith has kind of fitted into this weight class. I don't think a lot of guys look at Anthony Smith and say, wow, that's a small light heavyweight. Like, he's still a big guy at this division. He just lacks that light heavyweight strength, if that makes any sense. Like, we saw Rakic kind of ragdoll him. I think Crute could do the same.
And for Anthony Smith, I mean, from what I understand and from what I've seen his last fight, no longer with the Return of the Mac as a walkout song, which really surprised me. I mean, that cemented his rise up to the title. So it's unfortunate that we don't get to hear it. Best walkout in the sport. I absolutely love it. Anybody else is an imitator and a hater. But for Anthony Smith, the originator. Now, for Jim Crute, again, you talk about knee brace and you talk about Dan Kelly, a guy who is primarily in his corner. Now, I don't see Judo Dan in his corner. But I do really expect, an improved Jim Crute. We have seen improvements fight over fight. There is a wrestling base there. He's great at taking down his opponents and wearing on them. But again, as I said, as the fight goes on, it kind of goes incrementally in the favor of Smith. So it'll be important to see if we do get a quick start out of Jim Crute, if he's able to capitalize early with one of the best hair games I've seen in some time.
It looks good, but I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I think Jim Crute in the second and third round can still dominate. Like, if Anthony Smith is the one on the back foot, and if he's the one getting taken down and eating damage, I don't expect him to be the fresher fighter by the end. I just think Crute has to be smart with his forward pressure. He can't just walk forward stupid. He has to be smart about picking his shots on the way in. We talk about this a lot. Like, there's guys like Marvin Vettori who are smart at getting into the clinch. Then you have other fighters who don't really know how to get their way in close. Jim Crute's a smart guy getting in close.
And I mean, we're getting to see the corner of Jim Crute. One guy looks like a tall Ricardo Lamas with him, just kind of filled out and much, much taller, wearing a mask, so who would ever know? But it has been interesting tonight, just as the judges have been scoring fights, as the referees that we've kind of had with the Renner ref, the couple of refs that we have never seen before in the octagon, in weird places and not really with it. It's kind of like that time that the NFL, when we already had an NFL ad here so far with the ESPN broadcast, but the NFL, the one time they didn't have the real refs, it went a little sideways. But Matt, we're focusing on this fight. What you're going to see if you've never tuned in with Fight Night Picks Fight Companion, you're going to want to sync up the TV with us. Forget about the Twitter. Instagram's not really great for news, so just forget about the Twitter. Sync up with us. I'll have the timer go live. I'll just show you what it looks like. Boom. If there's a groin shot, things are going to get a little funky. Again, Jim Crute's picture where he's got his arms way out. That's why it looks weird. But as we continue on, most people look halfway normal with it. So you're going to get that angle. You're going to get that view, and you're going to like it. Going with loyal opinions over everything. Yeah, that's just a mouthful. Blackberry and oats. Do you want me to shout? I can turn it up a little bit more if you want. There. Matt's got to speak up. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. Anthony Smith is just a gatekeeper to the top 10.
Yes, he is now. But even his best victory, guys, was Volkan Oezdemir, who's a good fighter, but I don't think he's a great fighter. And that's the problem. Like, again, we had that comment earlier. Oh, is Jim Crute that good? Is Anthony Smith really a top-tier light heavyweight? And I think, honestly, I call this a crossroads fight, but for Anthony Smith, he needs to be able to solidify himself as, like, I am still a guy at 205. Like, if he can win this fight, then Anthony Smith, you're right back in there. Maybe he gets a rematch with Thiago Santos. You know, there are guys at the top of the division that Anthony Smith can still fight. I like how fired up he is walking up to the cage. You'll love to see it. But I hope he's not too invested in the energy that the crowd has, because if that turns against him in the middle of the fight and he's put this amount of energy into what they think, then it could turn against him.
I don't like wearing glasses before I go to do sports. I'll be totally honest with you. When I wear my glasses, like, I could wear them all day. I could wear them for a couple hours at night. But when I put these babies on, and let's say I go to play ball or I go to play hockey or whatever, everything's off. Like, everything's just a little bit off, and it takes me a while to get going. So hopefully Anthony Smith has laser sight eyeballs, and he's able to recuperate out of wearing his glasses, walking into the octagon, getting everybody amped up. Mark Montoya in the corner. Are we going to have James Krause? Probably not. I think that was more or less a one-off.
Yeah, because James Krause turned out, talked a lot in the corner, and in an empty arena, that was not beneficial to Anthony Smith's gameplay. Again, it will be interesting to see Anthony Smith outside of that main event atmosphere. Because again, the Gustafsson fight, main event, Rakic, Devin Clark, I understand both those were 3-round main events, but the majority of Anthony Smith's training camps are centered around 25-minute fights, 25-minute fights. It will be nice to see him in a different atmosphere, in a different environment. Because, again, this could be a fight of the night. I gotta be honest. Like, if Anthony Smith can clip Jim Crute on the way in, and this sort of devolves, I guess, into a bit of one of those Anthony Smith kind of knock him down, drag him out brawls, this very well could be, one of the best fights in the card.
Time is not aligned. For the lead up to UFC Moncton, I spoke to Anthony Smith probably 3 or 4 times, and you talk about, like, a class act. The guy's definitely a class act. Like, he's the type of guy that takes time with the fans, with the media. He's generally, invested in it. So it's great to see a guy that has that many fights, wins, losses, so on and so forth, and finish losses. It's great to see, a fighter like that. But we get set for this fight, Matt. A couple of guys that really have a big opportunity to blow it wide open. I mean, next weekend we have a huge main event. Yuri Prochazka taking on the man himself, Dominic Reyes. But as far as this is concerned, I mean, for Jim Crute, you look at the wins, and Modestas Bukauskas, a good win over a good prospect, but you really got to continue to move up the ladder. Anthony Smith, one of those names. And as we get set for this fight, Matt, I mean, a 7-year age gap. Smith is going to have the height and weight advantage, but I'd be interested to see, a la boxing, not so much one championship, which was going to come out of my mouth, but what both of these guys weigh walking into the octagon.
It would be interesting, because I have a feeling Jim Crute weighs well over 230 pounds right now. Like, I really do think that's a guy who could fit in well in the heavyweight division one day if he decides to just not cut weight. Because, again, he is physically one of the bigger guys at this division, and if Anthony Smith doesn't have the wrestling defense, if he shows up to this fight like he did for Rakic, this is going to be a very similar fight, because I do think Jim Crute, at least offensively from the top position, can do a lot of what Alexander Rakic can do. I just think he misses that sort of like high velocity if he really needs to go for it, kind of fast twitch. That's the only difference between the two fighters, really. So I do think this is a really compelling matchup at 205.
Q or Kai, do we have a Venmo or PayPal? Hit up the super chat if you want to help out the boys. But if you really want to pick something up, because I don't do the whole PayPal or Venmo stuff, if you really want to get something tangible, go over to the website, fightnightpicks.com, and pick up some of the merch. Like, we got the Under Armour shirts over there. We've got the baseball jerseys. And we just re-up with Manscaped there today for another 3 months. So it's because everybody out there is helping us out. They're supporting the sponsors. They're picking up some of the merch that's out there. I've got the t-shirt on, even though it's hidden by Anthony Smith.
I got the long sleeve shirt on.
Matt's got the long sleeve. So you can check that stuff out. But Matt, I mean, getting ready for this fight. Can't wait for it. Anthony Smith coming in here again off that big win over Devin Clark. Before that, a couple losses. Rakic, Teixeira. He had the win over Gustafsson. That was a big one over in Sweden, too. That was a comeback.
I want to get your take on this. I feel like this fight for Jim Crute is similar to the Gustafsson fight for Anthony Smith. Like, for Jim Crute, this is when you want to fight Anthony Smith, similar to when Anthony Smith fought Gustafsson. Like, that was when you wanted to get Gus.
All right, Matt. We're getting ready for the start of our first round. And again, you pause it on your end, and you wait for us. I'm sorry. That's the only way I can get it going.
No nonsense.
If you do want to hit up the super chat, Matthew Doherty, hit the $ down there. You got to have it set up, though. It is a little confusing. All right, Matt, we're getting set for our first fight on the main card. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, and we'll get set for a big one coming up here between Jim Crute, the man. He's Jim now. He's not Jimmy. And Anthony Lionheart Smith. And Matt, for Jim Crute coming out here, high guard, Smith, moving around, side to side. Are you thinking he's going to be pumping those leg kicks?
You would expect, but that's kind of the key for both guys, because Anthony Smith is in that rare category, something we talk about a lot, where he's great offensively at throwing them, but he does rarely check leg kicks. Like, if you do get really dedicated to the leg kicking game, you can take out Anthony Smith and chop him down from the legs. So it will be really interesting to see who establishes that first. And same thing, I always talk about Jim Crute moving forward, but same thing for Anthony Smith. Like, when he's at his best, he's moving forward, throwing combinations, being long and rangy. Some of the things we talked about with a guy like Alex Oliveira, or even Randy Brown in that fight. So I think this fight really does come down to who's moving forward. Right now, so far, Jim Crute's the one who's established the middle of the cage.
Jim Crute establishing distance, and we talk about it. I mean, Anthony Smith is one of the more dangerous fighters behind the two black lines, and it's not often that we say that. Usually we kind of get pretty difficult on a fighter that'll accept to go back there. Don hitting us up to the super chat saying cheers. I'll have a sip of water when I get the opportunity. But Smith now starting to establish the center. He gets kicked, and that was an issue. Even going back to that Volkan Oezdemir fight, like his leg was, it looked like he had 2 softballs on either side of his knee.
And again, that's the thing for Anthony Smith. Talk about 8 KO TKO losses. He's taken damage throughout his career. I even think about the body shots. Think about Thiago Santos hurts him to the body. Even Gustin hurt him to the body with a kick in that fight. Like, Smith has been susceptible to damage, and that's always concerning, especially in a division like 205, where really everyone's just kind of a puncher and a finisher just because you're so big and you're in the division.
Smith doing a half-decent job here, pumping that jab out there, trying to establish the distance. Jim Crute trying to crack it, doing a really good job of throwing the kicks and not really getting checked. But again, another nice jab from Smith.
Yeah, really sitting down on that jab too, and if he can start to chain that together and put a right hand behind it, he might be able to blind Jim Crute with the jab and then crack with a right hand. And if he can start to get those combos going, that's the thing for Anthony Smith. I don't think he's a great striker just on the outside with his rangy attacks. I think he's good at using those attacks to really get in close range. When he lets his combos go, Anthony Smith is as dangerous as any guy in this division.
Vu Dude, you are too generous over in the comments section. And Kai, Kiwi, you got us? Well, we appreciate that. Anthony Smith, though, again, doing a really good job. Both guys really trying to feel it out. Both guys going to land kicks. And that's the thing. It's whoever's first. Smith really pumping that jab out there.
He is, and he's landed every time too. Real accurate jab, and that's what Anthony Smith's going to need to do. He is the longer fighter. I know we talked about him being the smaller guy, but that's really only in build. He's still a long, rangy fighter, and if he can pick apart Jim Crute on the outside as he comes in, that probably will be his best path to victory.
We're about halfway through the first round, and now that we're here, are you surprised that Crute hasn't even tried to threaten on the ground?
Not really, because they are kind of 50-50 on the feet. Like, I would say Anthony Smith is getting the better of some of these exchanges, but it's not like Crute's completely out of it yet. I think he will go to the takedown eventually, but I think for Jim Crute, it's really about getting Smith up against the cage and then going for the takedowns.
Yeah, I mean, right here in these positions, you talk about it 50-50 and Hep 27, no head movement from Crute. It is true. I mean, again, we've seen jab after jab after jab land for Smith and right through the guard. And I talked about it right at the start. I mean, you look at Crute, really nice high stance. He's going full Bangkok ready in this fight so far, landing those nice kicks.
And Smith landed a good right hand to kind of split the timing of Jim Crute, but Crute countered it with a really nice left hook. And that's the thing. Both guys have landed, but that's the thing about Smith. He's keeping him at such a far range that Crute's not able to counter him because as he counters, they're so far away that Smith's able to react and he's able to see all of it.
Smith's starting to go to the body a little bit with that left hand. And I mean, Voodoo's saying that jab is laser tonight, 100%. The kicks are doing a really good job for Crute, and that's a great way to slow down Anthony Smith. Kai, Kiwi, you got to tell me what it is.
Thank you.
$24.99 over in the super chat. We definitely appreciate you. And they accentuated the stat over there. And I mean, a great job by Crute catching the leg, really trying to pressure up, but wasn't really able to do much with it. Keith Peterson, right in the action.
Ooh, Crute hurt his leg. Jim Crute's done. Oh, wow. He
Jim
needed
Crute with the
every bit of
takedown.
it. And that was the thing. Hurts his leg with one calf kick. That's the thing about those calf kicks. You eat one of them the wrong way, like, it's pretty much over. But Crute did exactly what he had to. Got on top and is heavy on top now.
Jim Crute really doing a good job landing that ground and pound underneath the guard of Anthony Smith, who's just trying to get his wits about him and back up to his feet. 43 seconds remaining in our first round. And yeah, I mean, doing a great job. Voodoo, if you're ahead of us and you say dropped and tapped, I see it. Yikes.
That's the thing. For Crute, he's got to make this takedown count. Like, he was in a lot of danger when he first hit the ground after that leg kick. He's really got to be dedicated with this takedown. I expect he's going to go for this game plan more in the second and third round. But great first round for Anthony Smith so far. Really established the jab well, and hopefully in the second and third, he starts setting up combos off that jab.
Yeah, Jim Crute really covering up here, trying to go for another takedown. And you have to wonder, especially with the way that the fights went earlier, how those takedowns score in the eyes of the judges.
No, it's a really good point, too, because, like, right now, Joe Rogan probably gave that round to Jim Crute because there's nothing he loves more than a takedown with 5 seconds left. But really interesting fight because I do think Smith was the one who did the more damage. Crute can barely walk back to his corner, though. Like, his leg's completely giving out.
Mark, hitting us up in the super chat. We definitely appreciate you.
That leg's dead. If
that is that Michael Chandler against the man himself, Brent Primus. You don't like to see that ankle. It'll be interesting to see if we do get a doctor in here. Crute was able to wobble it out just a little bit, but if we get a little bit more time, usually you can get your wits about you. That nerve kind of can come back. Spencer saying, who won round one?
Smith.
Yeah, I would say Smith just off of the drop, but it is a really tricky one. That was a great kick for him, and you see Crute just kind of roll. He rolls on his ankle there. Again, that's just like the Michael Chandler and Brent Primus injury that we saw. Now, in that fight, it was ended due to that injury. It was a doctor's stoppage, so it'll be interesting to see if a doctor comes in and we end up with a decision. Now, Crute's walking on it. Looks like it's halfway decent here.
Yeah, he does seem to have some power underneath his foot, which is a good sign. I mean, no one wants this fight to be over right now, but for Crute, he is into it too. He seems to be fired up.
Oh, fight's over.
Wait, they just called the fight?
Oh my goodness, there's no way.
Wow.
That's awful. Oh my gosh.
Damn, that sucks.
You
Jim
gotta
Crute,
run that one
a good
back.
guy.
That's an awful stoppage.
I mean, listen, his leg was hurt, but yeah, I thought he was ready to go. He seemed fired up already. He seemed like he had control of his foot. But yeah, that's a really disappointing end to what was turning into a really good fight. But for Anthony Smith, Anthony Smith, I don't think this is similar to when Leon Edwards eye poked Bilal Muhammad, and it was like, it was kind of weird. Smith still won that first round and was winning the fight up until it ended. It's unfortunate that it ended that way, but I mean, if you ask me, okay, who won that fight for the duration of the fight? Anthony Smith obviously won that fight. So hopefully we do get a rematch down the line, or at least Jim Crute get back in there with other top level competition. But I think there's quite a bit that Jim Crute can actually learn from this performance. Head movement and feints from the outside are probably going to be smart moving forward. You can't just stand at range with these longer, rangier guys, because they will just pick you apart and really start to cause damage that way. So I think this is one of those performances where it kind of sucks. It's one of those things that sucks right now, but I think there's kind of positives that you can take from both guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's a weird one. That's just such a weird fight. And again, it's so odd because we've seen something like that. We've seen that happen before in other fights. Again, people bring up Sean O'Malley injury, but to me, that's an odd stoppage right there.
And again, we can't hear the commentary, so maybe they know something that we don't. But yeah, I think that Jim Crute, he seemed to roll it there at the end. But again, I thought he was good enough to compete. He did get the takedown, even though his leg was hurt in the end of that round. So weird stoppage, but yeah, those calf kicks, learn how to check them. You can't leave the house without that defense, because yeah, calf kicks are really taking over MMA. If you land 3 or 4 clean calf kicks, that's as good as any overhand right. If you can debilitate your opponent, just not let them move for the rest of the fight. So just a great job by Anthony Smith. He did look a lot better than I thought he would.
Yeah, YOLO the reindeer sucks, but in the long run could have saved Crute from a really bad injury. It could have just been, what's it called? The Liz Frank injury. It could be something in his foot. It could just be, momentary nerve type issue. We don't know, but Rebecca Middleditch saying he couldn't walk. Yeah, he couldn't walk. It's tricky with some of those injuries, right? Because, a few minutes later you can snap right out of them, or it is long-term damage. But overall, a good win for Anthony Smith. You have to give credit where credit's due. I mean, we were wrong on the pick. But yeah, a big win for him. And then you got to kind of think, if you're in Anthony Smith's corner, that's 2 nice wins, 2 finish wins, the one over Devin Clark, and now you have a ranked fighter in Jim Crute. And if we have a look at the rankings, Jim was at 13. You've got Anthony Smith hanging around there at 6. Ankalaev, you run it back with Uzdemir? What do you do?
I think the Ankalaev fight would make a lot of sense. That'd be a really fun fight, too. The name out there, and I'm not sure if he is matched up. I'm sure someone could.
Let's just answer Sean McMinn first. I mean, over in the Super Chat, is ruling Smith by TKO. Yep, it's a TKO win for Smith there. But, yeah, I agree with you. I do think Ankalaev would be a good one.
Yeah, I think Ankalaev would be a great fight. Jamal Hill, another name out there. I'm not sure if Anthony Smith, he's already kind of had that, okay, I'm fighting the prospects now that I've lost a couple times to the top guys. I'm sure they would like to probably give Anthony Smith another guy in the rankings. I doubt they're going to look outside the rankings and make Anthony Smith really prove his spot another time. But I think Jamal Hill could be a really fun fight. He's a prospect, too. I think he has a very high ceiling. I do. He's got great hand speed. He's got really good combinations. He's just a lot of attributes that when I look at the other guys at light heavyweight, not a lot of other guys have them. So personally, Jamal Hill, I think, would be a great fight. But Ankalaev, both guys are firmly in that top 10. That'd be a great fight.
To me, I'd love to see the rematch, but can Volkan even fight in the States anymore? Then there's Nikita Krylov. I mean, he's just coming off of that loss.
I have a dark horse pick. If Jared Cannonier ever decides that light heavyweight might be his division, I think that could be a fun fight. I know he lost to Jan Blachowicz and Dominic Reyes, but those guys just fought for the title. You're shaking your head. But again, he lost to 2 of the best guys in the division. I think if he ever did decide to move back up, that could be a really fun fight that they could make in the future.
Joe Rogan doesn't like to interview guys that get TKO'd, but we get an interview from a TKO guy here. And we'll see what happens as we continue on. But, man, I mean, big fight in our next one. And I know that they're going to talk about it on the broadcast. You get Uriah Hall in the rematch with Chris Weidman. The rematch that you didn't know you needed to see. That's 11 years in the making. I mean, Uriah Hall ended up losing to Chris Weidman back on the regional scene. Weidman went undefeated, beat Anderson Silva, and the rest is legend. And for Uriah Hall, the star that never was.
Really, Uriah Hall, it seems like his career has had a restart about 7 different times now, and I just don't remember when he didn't make weight or was medically unable to cut the weight when he was supposed to fight Vitor Belfort, and that was supposed to be like the 7th iteration of Uriah Hall. So I do think that this is the best run that he's had in his UFC career. I think the win over Antonio Carlos Jr. was just an impressive win because normally guys who are really good grapplers just beat Uriah Hall. It's pretty plain and simple, but the fact that he was able to not only defend takedowns, but to defend submissions and get back up to his feet against one of the best grapplers really in the UFC, or at least at the time, no longer with the UFC. But I like Uriah Hall's stand-up game. I really do. And for Chris Weidman, I just don't think he has the same level of durability that he did when he was on his original run to the title, and even while he held the title. So Chris Weidman in 2021 isn't the same guy from 2016, 2015, and for those reasons, I do think Hall's going to win this one.
I mean, Anthony Smith is already sweaty and he just put socks on. That's just going to feel awful. You're going to have weird pictures moving forward. Scarlet Scorpion saying Weidman by KO TKO plus 850 was too good to pass on. Sometimes there's odds that just, they're weird. Denny Rose saying, who do you guys have winning? Reluctantly Uriah Hall, but again, it's one of those ones I leave off. Because for Uriah Hall, he's on a 3-fight win streak coming into this one against Bevon Lewis, no longer in the UFC, Antonio Carlos Jr., no longer in the UFC, Anderson Silva, no longer in the UFC. Now, they were good wins. Bevon, he finished. He had that weird decision that was a split against Antonio Carlos Jr., and then the big win over Anderson Silva. It was a main event. It was on Halloween. It was a big one. So, Uriah Hall, we've always known him as a counter-striker. His whole career, he's been a counter-striker. He's an explosive striker as well because he's a guy that reserves his motion, and then when, boom, he needs to go, he goes. Kind of a little bit like a Thiago Santos. Just a little bit where he'll conserve the energy, he won't waste anything, but at the same time, he can get backed up. He can get out volume. So with Uriah Hall, it's really tricky. The Bevon Lewis fight is the perfect example of a fight like that where back up. And then finally he lands a nice shot. Did he drop Paulo Costa? I'll take it in my grave that he didn't. We can disagree on it. Or he did. And you can argue with me that maybe he didn't. But for Uriah Hall, it's just odd because can Chris Weidman take him down and just absolutely hold him down? It's a possibility. Uriah Hall is one of those guys that usually if he gets taken down the first time, boom, he's able to pop back up. Kind of similar, and we previewed it this way, the Dwight Grant fight against Seklich. Now, hopefully this isn't that, but Dwight Grant got taken down once in the first round, popped right back up, and then the other takedowns, he didn't really stay on the bottom all that long. He was able to defend halfway well, but again, you can agree and disagree on even how you scored that one. But in this fight, for Chris Weidman, you talk about the finished losses, and it goes a lot further back than the 5-on-in. But you look at the 5-on-in. So 4 years ago, he gets finished by Gegard. He got finished by Jacare. He got finished by Dominic Reyes. The wins, Gastelum, and his last time out, Omari Akhmedov. Omari Akhmedov's not a big striker. I mean, the Wolverine is anything but. Middleweight Rankings brought to you by Hair Club. I mean, who in the Middleweight Rankings really needs Hair Club, if you think about it?
Off the top of my head, Adesanya, honestly, I feel like he's kind of got one of those LeBron James hairlines going on where, like, he's bald by choice, but he could Edson Barbosa us one day and just...
Sean Strickland?
Yeah, Sean
Paulo
Strickland.
Costa?
Yo, yeah, Paulo needs it. But, again, I'm so excited for this fight because here's the thing. I'm going to push back on what you said about the Seklich Dwight Grant. Dwight Grant can get back up to speed against Stefan Seklich because Seklich isn't Chris Weidman. Like, Chris Weidman became the UFC champion because he's great at getting on top of people and damaging them. The thing is, Uriah Hall has been controlled on the ground. Like, go back to the Gegard Mousasi fights. We all remember them because he had that great highlight in the first one. But he got completely dominated in the first round. Was on the receiving end of a 10-8 round. And then at the start of the second round, when they're both fresh, knocks out immediately. In their second fight, Gegard takes Uriah Hall's back. Like, he does control him on the ground quite a bit. And for me, that's why this fight is so volatile. It is one of those one-way traffic fights because Weidman's going to take him down and just lay on top of him. I really don't think Hall is going to have the opportunity to get back up to his feet. The real question for me is, where does Chris Weidman feel safe shooting in from? Because if he shoots in from too far away, Uriah Hall's too smart of a counter-striker to just let you get away with something so lazy. He's going to make you pay, and he's going to make you pay with big power. And with Chris Weidman, maybe back in the day when he was fighting the filthy Tom Lawlers of the world and when he was fighting Adesanya, he'd be able to take those big shots. I just don't think him at 36 years of age, after those 5 TKO KO losses, I just don't think he's the same guy anymore.
It is a really tricky one. And listen, I mean, Matt Groidel, you've got Chris Weidman to win because he goes to your church. So that's good to see.
It's kind of cool.
Michael asking, was Kevin Holland a flash in the pan, or do you see him improving? I mean, he kept that going for a full calendar year. It's just, yeah, you got to improve your wrestling. If he goes to an AKA or one of the big gyms, even Sanford MMA, Jackson Wink,
or
maybe
just go to
able
170. Just go to 170. Like, he's a welterweight who's been fighting at middleweight. He has a TKO win over Jeff Neal. I don't know why you're doing this. Because he did, and that's the thing. Beating Jeff Neal really does mean something, and I feel like a lot of people forget that. Like, Kevin Holland is a player at 170, even though he hasn't been yet. He's kind of like the Bizarro Darren Till. Like, is Darren Till really that big of a deal at 185? Not really. I mean, he had that good fight with Whitaker. Again, I thought he beat Whitaker, but he really is known more for what he did at 170. Then he moved up. For Kevin Holland, he's just going to have the momentum, if you will, that he had at 185 moving down. I think they're going to use the win that he had over Jeff Neal just as a way to give him one of those guys who is a borderline 15 guy. And I think Kevin Holland will be back and better than ever. I think he's one of those fighters who, when you fight those bigger guys, and just naturally you're not going to be able to defend against those takedowns. So for Holland, I do think it's as simple as just go back to the weight class that you probably belong in.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. We get a montage of Chris Weidman wearing trunks that aren't the trunks that they wear anymore at all. Like, I'm not even talking Venom. So we'll see what happens with Chris Weidman in this fight. Uriah Hall, again, ever the counter striker. You get the metrics there. Chris Weidman, usually the bigger, taller fighter against most of his opponents. And you saw the quick move up to 205 and then right back down to 185. That was an odd one. It really was.
It was, and I think I know why. I think when he went for that first takedown on Dominic Reyes, he basically has a perfect shot in on it, like hands around the waist. Reyes just kind of muscles out of it. And I don't know if Chris Weidman was just like, hey, I know I've only had one shot up at this weight class, but I got in on a really good takedown and I still wasn't able to get him down. I understand the sample size isn't that big, but if you're Chris Weidman, okay, I got knocked out in one punch, basically. And the one time I get to my best technique, I still wasn't able to execute it. For me, I do worry about his durability, again, at 185. The fact that he does cut an extra 20 pounds off of what I thought seemed to be a bit of a fragile guy at 205. It just will be interesting. This fight really is the definition of a clash of styles. This is Mike Goldberg's favorite fight. It really
and
is.
for Chris Weidman, I mean, training for this camp at Jim O, obviously, you've got that connection with Wonder Boy. Ray Longo came down for a little bit, but we've talked about it, and I don't see him in his corner. But John Salter, getting to work with Salter, especially with the grappling aspects of MMA, the BJJ, there's nobody better to grapple with at 185 than a John Salter.
Oh, I couldn't agree, unless he had like Rafael Lovato Jr. on call somewhere. But no, I agree 100%. Like, Salter's kind of the guy you want in your training camp. What's Chris Weidman good at? Well, he's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's a great wrestler. John Salter's going to help you in all those jiu-jitsu, the transitions and the scrambles, and all sort of the unorthodox grappling that Chris Weidman's not used to with his wrestling background. John Salter's going to help him fix all that, and I couldn't agree more. Like, I do think a guy like Salter, he's going to help you so much day in and day out.
Frank Castle asking for the likes over there, and Besser, you're saying Crute, and yeah, Rongju, that was disappointing. I mean, all three Chinese fighters representing the PI losing their fights, and I mean, Archie Long looked pretty good in the first round, and then Jeff Molina looked good in the second. It was close, but he looked great in the third. We got Wonder Boy in the corner of Chris Weidman. Just a couple of great fellers.
They really are. No one has more fun than those two guys, and that's the truth. For Weidman, again, I don't know what Hall's going to do if he's the one getting backed up, because for Hall, he's one of those guys who can strike backwards like he did against Anderson Silva. Goodness, can't remember. I forgot the GOAT's name. But for Weidman, I just don't like his striking. He's always been really stiff on the feet. And I know I use the word stiff to describe guys like Jan Blachowicz, but even with Jan Blachowicz, think about it in your mind, like, technique-wise, Jan Blachowicz, it's not like he's getting hit clean all the time. Like, people like to throw around, oh, he's a good boxer, but then you look at it and defensively they get hit a lot. Jan Blachowicz is defensively very sound, and then on the offense, he can move forward, he has combos and whatnot. For Weidman, there just seems to be kind of like that hesitancy to throw really hard behind his shots. He has decent combinations, he can put his hands together, but I just don't like the fact that he always seems to pull it with his chin really high. And Uriah Hall, like you would say with the Bevon Lewis fight, like Bevon Lewis beat the brakes off him for, 14 minutes? And then Uriah Hall landed that one perfect shot, and Hall can't land that perfect shot, and that's the scary thing about him.
Vicente the GOAT, money coming in on Jorge. I've never seen a stranger line. Go back and look at, it was Ike Villanueva's last fight, and the line went from like plus 170 to minus 170. I thought, am I crazy? Like, did people know something that I don't? And then Ike Villanueva got pieced out.
Yeah, that's never a good sign. It is always curious to see. It is weird, too, because I do feel like Masvidal, I don't really know what to call this effect. Is it the McGregor effect, where it's just Masvidal, people who watch his fights, like, I have friends texting me today who don't normally care about the UFC, ask me about the main event tonight. Like, he's one of those fighters, and I do wonder how much that does influence the odds, because it's something we talk about a lot, especially with Conor McGregor, that, like, his odds are normally a little bit skewed, and I do wonder how much that does affect a Masvidal, because I doubt it does as much as a McGregor, but I'm sure it does to some degree.
Joshua Hart, if you're still over in the comments section, I know you can roast me a little bit on this, but the old 8K camera there for the UFC was getting a little glitchy. getting a little glitchy. Uriah Hall looking mean. And, yeah, I mean, he's got a really big fight ahead of him. And Zion saying Crute still tried to fight. Let's go Hall. Yeah, that was just a tricky one. I mean, he was walking away on his own power to the cage.
It's tough, though, because, again, if he can't walk for 4 more minutes and you're in there with Anthony Smith, who's already piecing you up on the outside, like, I get there's a reason to be upset, but, again, if you're Jim Crute, do you really want to be in there on only one leg against one of the more dangerous strikers in the division? I doubt it. I understand we could be upset, but, like, it is what it is at the end of the day. It's one of those things that sucks, but MMA's the weirdest sport going.
There was somebody defending you in the comments section earlier. I just pulled it up on my phone there.
You like that?
But we're tied. We're tied into this. So you had a 6-2 start. I had a 6-2 start. We only flip-flopped on Molina, Archie Long, and then we were different on Bakary and Natividad. So there is that. But, yeah, ultimately a very, very interesting fight ahead of us. And again, if this is your first time tuning in or you tuned in late and Joe Dirt saying how and why did they stop the Crute fight because he kept fumbling on his ankle. But pause your TV, tune in with us, and, yeah, you don't have to. We try our best not to just focus in on one fighter. That's pretty much it.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. In a fight like this, too. Like, this fight could go either way. I call it one-way traffic because of that. Like, Chris Weidman could easily go out there, land 2 jabs, double-leg Uriah Hall, and that's basically 5 minutes and then times 3. Uriah Hall can go out there and knock him out with 1 punch, though, and I do think that there is a chance that this fight could look a little bit like Machida, Chael Sonnen, just if they were both, like, 7 years younger, still a little past their primes, but still had a little bit more tread on the tires. I do think Hall can land something really big. I do, especially in the entries of Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman could prove me wrong. He did it last time, or in his last outing against Amariak Medov, but I'm as excited for this fight as I am for all 3 titles.
Jeffrey Smith, 1 missed spinning wheel kick equaled 90 good, powerful strikes. Weidman never been the same since. Yeah. Luke. Oh, Luke.
But here's the thing about that fight. Joe Rogan lied about that fight for about 7 years, where he was like, Chris Weidman was winning. He wasn't. If you go back, 2 of the 3 judges had it 2 rounds to none for Rockhold, and 1 had it 1-1 each. So it's not like Chris Weidman was winning that fight up until he threw the wheel kick, but it was one of the dumbest time techniques in MMA history. It really is.
Matt, we're going to get the particulars here on Uriah Hall. Like I said, I mean, both guys coming in. Weidman 2-3 in his last 5. Uriah Hall is on a tidy little 3-fight win streak, 3-2 in his last 5, representing Fortis MMA. And for Chris Weidman, representing Jim O in this one. He's got Ray Longo in his corner. Spent a little bit of time down there in the Carolinas training with them. Mel hitting us up in the super chat. Any concerns with their weigh-in? Are we talking Hall, Weidman? Not necessarily.
I don't have any worries for any of the fights here on out. Everyone looked to be all right, especially like Masvidal. If you look at what he looked like between the first Usman fight and this one, he does look physically a lot better as we get ready for this fight.
They saved Herb Dean for the big fights for this one, but yeah, we had our rent-a-ref earlier, and now we get the big dogs. Matt, we're getting set for our second fight on the pay-per-view card. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. If you haven't tossed us a like, we would certainly appreciate it. Weidman coming out here in the blue gloves, blue trunks, Uriah Hall with that red tape in his corner, and Chris Weidman looking to fire a jab out there early to try and establish the distance.
Never thought I'd see Chris Weidman come in. Oh, he broke his leg! Silva. Oh no, I don't want to look at the TV. Oh God, oh no. Oh, this is going to be in like a low light reel probably. Oh,
Uriah Hall.
Oh my goodness, drink more milk, Chris Weidman.
Oh.
He didn't kick. So to respond to Caroline Rick over there, he didn't kick the ass. He kicked his shin. He checked it, and his shin snapped. Oh God! See, calf kicks aren't something you should mess around with, because sometimes offensively they can win you the fight by knockout, and sometimes you can check them, and defensively they win you the fight. Now,
Uriah Hall's on a 4-fight win streak.
He is. He just won by finish too. That's a 2-fight finish streak for Uriah Hall. Man. I'm sure he doesn't feel good about this. This is wild. Man.
Uriah Hall doesn't want to win like that. I mean, listen, you saw it from Uriah Hall in his last fight with Anderson Silva. I know it got a little bit cheesy, but the guy's all about respect. And
yeah.
I mean, he doesn't want to win like that.
Uriah Hall, again, you say it does get a little bit cheesy, but it's true. Like, Uriah Hall, Whaley, like, this is what you want your fighters to be. You don't want, I always quote the Wreck-It Ralph, like, you can be a bad guy, but you don't have to be a bad guy. And I do feel like Uriah Hall does exemplify that more than any other fighter. That was disgusting, though. Like, there's nothing that bothers me worse in professional sports than when people break, I guess that's not very much of a hot take, but, Yeah. Is that it for Chris Weidman? This is not the time to be talking about that. That was really gross, though, and that really sucks for Chris Weidman because that was a guy who, yes, he is on the back nine of his career, but he's a guy who he did really feel like he could get back to that title shot. And whether you agreed or disagreed with him, I think we can all agree that's not how you want to see some guy go out. As they show the replay that I'm not going to watch, Craig, as I look to my right.
I'm gonna watch it.
I'm not.
Yeah, it was the exact same thing
Was
as
it?
the.
Okay.
It was the exact same thing as the.
Oh, it was, too, as I catch the last little bit of it. Okay. I'm not going to watch. I'm just not going to.
I mean, you get the kick.
Oh,
it's
Lord!
checked, and it snaps in half.
Oh, my goodness.
And Weidman doesn't know that it's snapped until he goes to land on it. And
Oh.
that's rough.
Oh, man. Oh, Lord. To say my palms are sweaty is an understatement right now. Like, that's so disgusting.
Yeah, that's
Anderson Silva's laying at home like Leonardo DiCaprio and that meme like this. I'm sorry I'm making jokes, but I don't really know how else to react.
I'm glad they're just showing Uriah Hall.
Yeah, that was really gross. That is just insane. And that was a fight that I had high hopes for. Like, we thought that was going to be fight of the night. I thought that was going to be like a knockdown, drag him out type
Yeah,
of
like
brawl.
let's go behind the fourth wall. When we were setting things up to get ready for the week, I'm pretty sure you said put Weidman and Hall as our fight of the night, and I went,
did.
no.
You said no.
We'll go Dana Bakary and Kevin Natividad. And both fights ended quick.
Oh, they definitely did. You know what? We could pat ourselves on the back for that. But yeah, for Uriah Hall, like, that's not how he wants to win. I'm sure he wanted to win by TKO. Probably not via leg kicks this way. But, man. Yeah, so you want to be an MMA fighter, huh? Jake Paul right now is in the crowd like, oh, so these guys are real tough people.
Chris Weidman, like, left the family to go from Long Island to the Carolinas to train for this.
Like,
Like,
clapping, that's good. That was bad and that was disgusting. Wow. What are they going? What's Jerome going to ask Uriah Hall about? How did that feel?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, now we have 3 title fights next, but let's just try and focus on something else.
I did say Hall was going to win by a weird TKO.
Uriah Hall had a full camp to fight for 30 seconds. And I mean, you have to imagine, again, stylistically, he was probably ready for the wrestling to get ready for a fight like that. So if we look up, what's Brad Tavares doing? What's Omari Akhmedov doing? The only thing is, Hall's on a win streak now, and it's 4 fights. So if you look ahead of Uriah Hall, Shabazian's there. You got Gaslam. He just had a knock him out, drag him out type of fight. Jack Hermansson's got a fight booked. Like, it's weak. Cannonier, maybe?
I think Kelvin Gastelum really is the perfect pick. I do, because look, they already had the built-in storyline that Uriah Hall is this hype train, but now their careers have kind of shifted. Like, Gaslam's the one on a bit of a downtick. I know he looked decent in defeat against Whittaker, but still, he's the one who's lost a little bit as of late, as opposed to Uriah Hall, who's been finishing people, although not conventionally. But for Hall, I do think there's just kind of a built-in storyline in that fight, and that could be a great fight that could really result in fireworks. So, personally, I'd love to see a Gaslam-Uriah Hall fight as they stretcher Chris Weidman away.
Odd to see Dana White in the cage after that.
Just, you don't see stuff like this often. That was really bad. Paulo Costa, that's the thing too, like, if they want to make a Costa rematch, I wouldn't be against that. Here's the great thing about middleweight. Middleweight's full of really good killers right now, and it's
Don't say that.
It's full of great fighters right now. It is, and it's full of guys who really, no matter who you match them up with, it's going to result in a very fun fight. And for Uriah Hall, again, there's rematches out there that he can go after, and for Hall, that's the one thing. I just don't see him fighting backwards in the division.
Let's answer Phoenix Graves' question. So, boys, who you got, Romero versus Johnson? Johnson looks in physically great shape. Yoel Romero does not. Yoel Romero in that one picture where he's got his just gut hanging out, like, I get it, he's still bodied up, but man, Yoel at 205, I thought, like, hey, this guy's, like, not the tallest, and he's heavily muscled. 205 is going to fit him well. Rumble went from weighing, like, 300 pounds being a bodybuilder to looking yoked at 205. So I can't wait for that fight. And Inside Baseball, probably not going to focus a lot more on the PFL. Probably not going to do much in the KSW because, quite frankly, people want to see that type of content from us. And we like it. Like, listen, we get up for that kind of stuff. We watch the KSWs. PFL was great last night. I enjoyed it. But people, it doesn't really attract the eyeballs. Bellator does well. But the others, they don't.
And that's just the case. Like, it is what it is. North America, really, those two, They are just such the dominant promotions in North America, Bellator and the UFC. As Uriah Hall gives a speech, I'm assuming he's probably saying something nice about Chris Weidman. Again, it's not like there was bad blood in this matchup. These guys are both very respectful before. And for Hall, it puts him in a really weird spot in his career because, again, I do think he's looked really good, and it is hard to really get a read on how great he was going to look in this fight or if he was going to look good. So for Hall, I do think there's a lot of exciting matches moving forward. I doubt they do the Whittaker rematch. That was a fight that happened at UFC 193. Whittaker beat him quite soundly, but that was early on in Whittaker's career where I think Hall's gotten better since that fight, but Whittaker's not only just gotten better, he's gone on to capture titles as well. So that might be a hard fight to put together, but that could be one down in the future. But the great thing for Uriah Hall, though, I can't stress this enough, there's great matchups in the future for him at 185.
It's weird, too, because he's had a lot of fights. He was on the Ultimate Fighter years ago. He's in his late 30s. But he's aged like fine wine.
He has.
Like, it's weird.
And normally, like, fast twitch strikers like Uriah Hall don't age well. Normally, you get slow, and then your reaction time's not good, and then you get clipped on the chin a lot. But for Uriah Hall, if anything, defensively, he's gotten better as his career's progressed. And I think he is on the best stretch of his career right now. I really do.
Well, Matt, I mean, you get out of this fight with Hall and Chris Weidman. You feel for your ligaments and your shin bones, and we just have to move on and out. And you have a big-time fight as that security guard looks just like Keith Jardine.
He does.
He does. And we get ready for our title fight. And Hafid is saying blah, 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 and Scott is saying who? Hafid, why are you here, buddy? Like, I think you just stumbled on the wrong corner of the internet. I don't know what you're looking for, but what we are looking for is Valentina Shivchenko and Jessica Andrade in a great fight, Matt, at 125 pounds. The first of the 3 title fights, UFC 217. Nobody would have thought 3 titles would have changed hands. We've had 3 title fight pay-per-view cards since, and did all 3 change hands? No, I mean, if you go back to UFC 251, Usman kept his belt. In the first fight, Petr Yan, I guess he won a belt. It was free.
Volkanovski defended.
So he had 2 out of 3, so to speak. Really he had 3 out of 3, if you want to call it that. Now we have these 3 title fights, Matt. Can you set up Shevchenko Andrade just in terms of the matchup that we could get between such a dynamic fighter in Valentina Shevchenko and a fighter in Jessica Andrade that if this was go-karting, they'd have to limit her speed, which they can do at the go-kart tracks because she goes too hard and hits people and throws them all about.
That really is the game plan of Jessica Andrade, and this is such an interesting fight. I know I fed this horse really until it's died, but Jessica Andrade, if anyone's beaten Valentina, it's going to be her next, because Andrade's one of the few women's fighters who has that one-punch knockout power. Like, when she hits people, they go down, whether it be to the head or to the body. Now, I just got done saying that Uriah Hall, Chris Weidman was going to be fight of the night, and that ended in probably the most gruesome way possible, so I'm not going to hype this fight up all that much, just so nothing weird happens, but Andrade, again, she has that crazy wrestling X factor where it's not really wrestling at that point. She just has such physical strength that she can basically pile drive anybody onto their head. With Shevchenko, I'd argue one of the most technical strikers in the UFC, just so defensively sound, and that's the hard thing for Andrade. We talk about, if she can land that shot, she can put her down. If she can catch her with a big shot, she can hurt her. That's the thing. Amanda Nunes couldn't even catch Valentina Shevchenko with a big shot, so it's going to be a hard ask for Jessica Andrade. But again, I'm more excited for this title fight than I am for the next 2. Like, I really do think this is going to be the best of the next 3.
So, for the question up there, hey guys, if one champion has to lose, who would you pick? I have it all, and still, so do you. If there was one that I wasn't sure of, co-main event maybe?
I'm going to pick Andrade. There you go. I said it. I really do think that this fight, odds-wise, is a lot closer than what people think. I think, again,
out of the 3 that have a chance to lose.
Out of the 3 that have a chance to lose.
You're answering the question, you're not changing the pick.
No, not changing my pick on any of them. But I do think if any of the challengers is going to win tonight, it will be Jessica Andrade. I just think when you're fighting people who you know that you're better than, you don't really have to improve yourself. And if you don't have a great camp fight between fight, that was one thing I meant to bring up in the videos. Let's say you don't have a good camp, but you're way better than the person you beat. Well, you're not at your peak when you beat them, and then you still don't have a great camp. But again, you're fighting people who aren't near your peak. You're not going to get better yourself by doing that. And Andrade, I do think, has improved.
Denny Rose, I got to answer your comments there. She is 5'1". However, I mean, she beat Raquel Pennington at 135. Like, she was very good at 135 pounds.
Phenomenal. Like, that's the thing. She did lose to some of those fighters, but At a certain point, weight will win out, and then skill, it doesn't have as much of a factor. But for Andrade, she proved that at 115, there's not many people who can hang with her. She's just so physically dominant at that weight class. And at 125, we've only seen her one time, but Caitlin Chukagian thought that she was quite the elite fighter at 125. Andrade threw one body punch, landed, and took her out. So I have such high hopes for this fight. I really do.
Michael Ralph saying at this rate we'll be in bed in an hour. Yeah, it might happen. I mean, it's been quick. You're gonna get a lot of filler. You're gonna get a lot of ads. I mean, what can we talk about, Matt? We just had a fight that was very strange. Voodoo's not agreeing with you. Let's rip it back over to the Shevchenko and Andrade for just a second, because, again, it is an interesting fight. With Andrade, she had the success at 35. 25 wasn't around, so she just cuts 20 pounds and goes to 115. Buzzsaw, the wins to get the title were interesting. Then when she gets there and she has that fight against Rose Namajunas, holy smokes. I mean, throwing her on her head, slamming away with the punches. The rematch was a little bit different. But that one fight, that was full gimme fuel, gimme fire. Give me that which I... Scada? I have always struggled with her nickname.
For Andrade, it was her first fight of the title against Joanna that wasn't that impressive. But after she lost her first title shot at UFC 211, her second run was insane. Like, she went out there and not only beat Claudia Gadelha, Tisha Torres, and Karolina Kowalkiewicz, but she 30-26 the first two and knocked the last one out in the first round. And her fight against Rose was really weird because she did get caught with the counters. And the unorthodox attack of Rose did give her problems, but when she does get her hands around people, it just picks them up over her head and drops them. There's really nothing you can do to defend what basically is a pile driver. So that's the question. Valentina, great defensively, but can she defend WWE techniques?
Danny is saying, okay, so everybody's saying Jessica's winning.
No, she's not. Let's be completely honest. Like, Shevchenko's going to piece her up as she walks in and probably finish her.
Yeah, I agree. Kent's saying, but Weili beat Andrade, so he's saying Weili beats Valentina. I want to see the fight, but I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. I just think Valentina, she's one of the few just good fighters weight class-wise at 125 who you're not cutting too much weight to make the class, and you don't have to bump up too much in weight to be a 125er like Joanna and like Andrade. So I just think Valentina is one of the few who this is her perfect weight class, and every fighter in there against her is either going to be too big draining themselves or going to be too small trying to overcompensate.
Landon saying OMG feels so bad for Chris. Oh, listen, hopefully, they can fix his leg and he's able to recover well and get back from it. Matt, if we have a look at the votes at Fight Night Picks on Instagram for this fight, 558 total votes for Shevchenko to 64 for Andrade. That's about 90% going with Shevchenko to get the win. It's pile driver in Portuguese. Jeffrey Smith picking everybody up. But it is an interesting fight. I mean, for Valentina Shevchenko, you look at the run, and she looked totally unstoppable. And the odds just kept going further and further and further towards the negative. And you look at the fight she had against Jennifer Maia. I know if you just Tapology it, I think it was minus 1850. And that was the first time where, hey, in the Joanna fight, did she lose a round or two? Possibly. But in the fight against Jennifer Maia, it was like, okay, she kind of got controlled for a round. But you got to look at it. She controlled the first. In the second round, okay, Maia won it. And then after that, it was all Valentina. So it was interesting to see that fight. And then you look at the odds in this one, and it's a lot different.
To quote, kind of Batman, when you see Superman bleed, though, it's going to give you confidence, and that's the case. No one thought anyone was on Valentina Shevchenko's level, and not even close. And the fact that Jennifer Maia went in there and made it a competitive fight. Now, listen, I'm not going to say, oh, Maia should have won or anything ridiculous like that, but she held her own against a champion who, Valentina's basically in that Mike Tyson category, where it's like, wow, you lasted past 30 seconds, or you got any success off against her. So, I understand we are nitpicking, really, the career of Valentina, but when you are expected to be so exceptional, fight in and fight out, these are going to be the details we're going to go after. And I do think, again, when you fight people who you're way better than, you can have mistakes in your training camp. You might not be the best version of yourself day in and day out, but you're never going to know because you're not fighting the best of the best. If Andrade wasn't at her best, she lost to Weili. When Andrade was at her best, she was able to beat the likes of Karolina, of Chukagian, really just of most top fighters in the UFC. So this fight really is as exciting as any other one, and it will be interesting to see just how will Valentina deal with the forward pressure of Andrade. I know she's a great counter striker, but normally it takes you time to really set up your reads and your counters, whereas for Andrade, if she's able to just land that one big shot, she might be able to hurt her enough to get something going.
Michael Ralph saying, I wonder the required pressure to snap a bone like that. Yeah, I mean, it's gross. I popped off a part of my arm one time, and that was gross, and it was awful.
That's not a sports science episode that I need to see, though.
That'd be interesting. Man plays hockey at 11 o'clock against full-grown men that play competitive
the Uriah
hockey.
one, but...
They'd both be interesting. But now we're getting the slam. Was it illegal?
No!
I mean, listen, not in the UFC, but if you're Christian Lee and you do it in one championship a long time ago, it's illegal over there. But knees to a downed opponent or not, one championship. Keep doing you.
Outside of one championship, I don't even want to talk about that right now because this is important. People tried to say that the Jessica Andrade technique was illegal on Rose. It wasn't. And it honestly grinds my gears when people say it was. Because this is the problem. Rose was going for a submission in that position. Andrade, they were in the exact same position in the first round. Andrade tried to slam her, but she couldn't because Rose let go of that position. Rose tried to hold on to the Kimura, and Andrade did the exact same thing that she did in the first round. The difference was that Rose was the one who decided to hold on. If she let go of the submission, she wouldn't have got slammed directly on her head. She made the conscious decision that, okay, I would rather get slammed and hold on to this submission than otherwise. So it was her own fault that she got out. But that was a conversation after their first fight that made no sense to me.
No, it was weird, and I implore you, if you want to go see like Christian Lee slamming guys and then losing because he slammed a guy, that's just weird and bad news bears. And that guy's on an absolute heater right now. One championship. Weird stuff. We got a great interview with Unlan Song too on the channel. If you want to check that one out, we had an interview with the double champ Martin Wynn, but unfortunately his fight out because he got COVID. So we'll see what happens. They were supposed to rebook Martin. I'd have to check to see if they did. And I mean, Eddie Alvarez getting rebooked, so Eddie's got a big fight coming up here soon. I've enjoyed the production. It hasn't been too bad, but there's so much MMA now with UFC, PFL, Bellator 1. Like, it's a great time to be an MMA fan. KSW today, like, there's a lot going on.
It's a great, yeah, like you would say, great time to be an MMA fan. When they're able to offer 3-fight title fight cards, you know it's a great time to be an MMA fan. Like, it's not often we do get treated to a card like this. And just go back to something that you had mentioned earlier about UFC 217. It feels like going into every 3 title fight or even 2 title fight night after that card, it felt like, oh man, could this be like 217? This did really feel like the first pay-per-view where people were like, all right, let's cut it. Like, I really doubt $300 are going to win all of these. So it is interesting that it feels like that chain finally has got broken.
Carol Hossa in the corner of Jessica Andrade, a fighter that definitely has a high ceiling at 135 and a big win over Jocelyn Edwards her last time out. Wow, really dominant fight in that one. Can't wait to see both of them come back. I mean, I think that they're going to be top 15 contenders for a while.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that for a moment as Andrade enters the cage. And again, for Andrade, it is kind of wild. Like, we talk about fighters moving up and down in weight class, but you rarely see... Let me put it into perspective. It'd be like if Tristan Connolly fought for the title at 170 and then fought for the title at 145 and then decided, yeah, I'm still pretty good at 155 too. Like, Andrade has been able to not only be good at 3 different weight classes, but be a real player at 3 different weight classes, capture the title in one, and then is, of course, fighting for the title in another. So I do think Andrade is sneaky one of those. She's not the female GOAT, but she should be in the conversation.
Just like the Diego Sanchez of women's MMA. Brandon DeVries asking us a good question. Favorite fight promotion other than the UFC? Probably Bellator.
It's Bellator.
I like KSW.
I used to say KSW to act cultured, but I just watch a lot more Bellator because it is so much easier to watch when you are in North America. Especially in Canada, this is weird, but you just watch Bellator on YouTube of all places right now. So it's just so much easier to get access to Bellator. So I would argue that, yes, Bellator would be the second promotion that I watch.
Valentina Shivchenko making the walk with Pavel and Antonina in her corner. She has a flag of Kyrgyzstan. And those hoodies, if you're wondering, in Canada, I checked it out, $194 for a hoodie like that. Canadian, that's absolutely insane. It's an interesting fight, though, because, again, Valentina's been so dominant at 125 pounds. You look at the fight against poor zombie girl Priscilla Cachoeira, and ever since, I mean, staple win, I would say maybe the Jessica I fight, if you want, like, a really, really good win, but probably the one that impressed the most amount of people. The eyes that were on the fight with Yoni and Jacek, UFC 231. I mean, listen, the I fight, crazy finish. The Cachoeira fight, bye-bye Mario Yamasaki to the UFC. But she has put on so many good performances. It'll be interesting to see what happens in this one against such a game opponent. Like you said, like, it's not just Andrade hype. She's a great fighter.
Yeah, and again, she's done it over 3 different weight classes. And for Valentina, it's weird because Valentina can fall into that Dwight Grant kind of trap where she isn't that interesting to watch until she is. She really does need the proper dance partner in there for her to get those really good reads and improve on her technique. Because when she does fight strikers who just kind of stand in a mirror with her, that's when she normally does go to the grappling side of things. You see the more wrestling dominant outside of Valentina Shivchenko. I will be curious to see if Shevchenko tries to get on top or get the takedown on Andrade, because Andrade is so good with that guillotine. Just go back and watch the Joanne Calderwood fight. That'll show it for you. So for Andrade, she really has great defensive submissions of her own. So if Shevchenko does get lazy with the takedown attempt, Andrade might be able to lock in a submission. Maybe not to the point where she gets the submission for the submission's sake by getting the tap, but at least get enough pressure so that she can get a sweep, or at least use that to get on top of Shevchenko.
LFA, great feeder league, and I mean, they've been putting on some great cards as well. Hep27 saying, actually a big fan of the Venom gear. And if I can get the comment from Frank Castle, shouts to Richie. Richie in the background. Just like Jenny from the block. Richie from Smiley's? Is that what it was called? Smiley's Academy? That's it.
Yeah.
Valentina Shivchenko going in to make yet again another title defense. Will it be successful? She's got that monster sponsorship. Has she been hanging out with hands? I don't know. But in a fight like this, Matt, again, it is such a good one. Because for Andrade, all the success at 15, you move up to 125. You go into a fight with Caitlin Chookagian, who at the time was back on the win streak. She had beaten Antonina Shevchenko and wrestled her. And then Andrade, that body shot, I mean, you might have thought, oh, geez, that's not going to do a ton of damage. It had a huge effect, and it ultimately totally swayed and ended up finishing the fight. So a great one for Andrade. A little bit of time on the shelf since that fight, but really eager to see what we get out of her tonight.
Exactly, and just going off that last performance, it's rare that when you make your divisional debut, you fight the number one contender. Not only fight the number one contender, but finish her in the first round as impressively as Andrade did. Now, I understand the kind of wild technique of Andrade is what's going to get her. It's probably what's going to lose her this fight if we're going to be black and white about it, but it's also that thing that could win it for her, and that's what makes this fight so fun.
Andrade, 3. Make it 4 years younger than Shevchenko. There's a height disadvantage. There's a reach disadvantage. Weight on par. But again, for Andrade, that's pretty much the story, even at 115.
Just a professional, really. That's the thing about Jessica Andrade. Not many fighters can drop down. I understand there wasn't the 125 weight class there, but just in effect, 2 weight classes and still, not only never complain about it, but you never heard like, oh, Jessica Andrade really struggles with her weight. Just always a professional the whole way through. Even if you go back and look at some of her training footage from down in Brazil, just always a professional 24/7.
Dan Marigliotta, our referee for this contest, and Tan Dan has the assignment. We'll get set for this. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in to our first of 3 title fights here on the YouTubes. We had the technical issues at the start. We worked through them. Sometimes OBS has a mind of its own. But as always...
And 2 broken legs.
Sync up with... Well, one weird one.
Yeah,
but sync up with the boys. We're going to hit the timer as soon as the round starts so you can go live with us. And we're on the same level playing field. And if you spoil it in the chat, so help me, I will just get a little bit upset.
I'm really excited for this fight as they start to intro both fighters. Start with Andrade. Again, for Shevchenko, I think she does have the power advantage in this fight, but Shevchenko never overcommits on her shots, and that's the thing. Like, Andrade probably hits harder because she does put everything behind it. For Valentina, she does stay so technical, so that is the real question. If Andrade can hurt her and at least get her off her game to the point where she's not as confident, because I was just listening to an interview, and it was Luke Campbell talking to Ryan Garcia, and he was like, hey, you can beat Lomachenko because I fought him and I fought you, and after he fought me, he's not the same confident fighter. I'm not saying the Valentina's Lomachenko, but they do have that very cerebral approach where if you can get them off their mental game, I do think that will also get them off their game plan as well. And if Andrade, again, we know she has the cardio, we know she has the output. If you can get Valentina backing up and start landing consistently on her, maybe she can make it an interesting fight.
So is Miranda Maverick the Teofimo Lopez of the division?
Unfortunately, not yet. Now, maybe one day she will be, but no, not yet.
All right, Matt, we're getting set for our first of 3 title fights. 5 rounders. Bruce Buffer is fired the F up. Daniel Cormier is calling out Jake Paul, I assume. And we get the particulars here.
That's one fight that, like, hey, Jake, I get it. You calling it MMA fighters, this is fun and all that. Daniel Cormier's a legit fighter, and he'll hurt you.
Getting set for our first of the 3 title fights. Shevchenko taking on Jessica Andrade. Really looking forward to this one. I mean, all 3 title fights, the first 2, I think are going to be a little bit more competitive, but you never know. I mean, Jorge Masvidal, a lot of people taking flyers on him, as I can see over in the comments section from SC Shoop.
Tim Tebow looks so uninterested in the crowd.
Tim Tebow, not a fight sport guy. Shevchenko starting out with that same bouncy stance, and you've got Andrade on the outside. Is she looking to counter?
Well, that's the thing with Andrade. She does have that weird kind of head movement where she almost anticipates the shots before they come in, and it is kind of that weird peekaboo-esque style. I hate to compare her to Mike Tyson, but for Andrade, she does have that similar kind of style.
Looking to grab the kick early from Shevchenko is Andrade, possibly taking it down to the floor. Nice kick early from Shevchenko. Just establishing distance. Both fighters really feeling it out. Andrade not overcommitting, but going for the body and overcommits, as I say it.
Well, no, but that's the thing for Valentina. Like, for Andrade, you need to overcommit to land those big bombs. Valentina can just stand at such a range, and her footwork's too good. She's not going to stand there and just let you hit on her. Unless you do get, like, throw combinations to land the third. Throw the first two punches just as sort of a mask to throw the third as Valentina starts to land.
1-2 down the pipe for Shevchenko, and that was one of the slickest combinations you're going to see in the division. Nice body kick there from Andrade, and it would be smart to invest, I would think, for the smaller fighter against the longtime champion here.
It's just the problem is if she starts to get involved with her kicks, Valentina's going to start countering her with punches. And again, I think Valentina is probably going to get the takedown at some point in this fight. And from
Shevchenko straight into side control with that takedown.
And this is where it gets interesting, the scrambles and whatnot, because I think Andrade can hold her own in some of these scrambles. It'll just be interesting to see for how long can she.
Andrade goes for a Hail Mary elbow as she has Shevchenko just holding onto her. The good thing for Andrade, though, popping back up to her feet.
No, I was just about to say, Andrade, you can tell how physically strong she is, but the same thing has to be said for Shevchenko. Like, you can tell just how grueling Shevchenko must feel in there.
Nice elbows for Andrade. I mean, early they weren't landing, but now finding a little bit of a home. Just, something to keep the respect of Shevchenko, who, again, gets another takedown, absolutely wearing on her opponent. Nice head kick at the end.
But for Andrade, you've got to have confidence from that. She tried to take you down. She had a good entry. She basically had you on the ground in your guard. You popped right back up to your feet. Great case for Andrade. But again, you have to get on the inside. If this fight's just being contested on the outside, Shevchenko's constantly going to be teeing off on her and getting her timing, unless Andrade can just get that Hail Mary shot. So for Andrade, I really think she's going to have to start pressuring her a lot harder.
Andrade a step slow in the striking. Shevchenko just teeing off in these exchanges. Andrade goes for a little bit of a upper body throw there. Isn't able to get it. 2 minutes and 35 seconds remaining in our first round. Everybody seems to love the Venom kits. Yeah,
I don't mind them. They don't look that bad for the fighters. This is the thing, I do like that kind of professional look, if you will, that even the Reebok fight kits do offer. I don't like promotionally what it takes away from the fighters, but I gotta be the Venom shorts don't bother me at all as Shevchenko's up against the cage.
Another takedown attempt from Shevchenko, and she gets it. Now you have Andrade with her back up against the cage. It'll be interesting to see if she can get Shevchenko off, just based on the head position that we see from Shevchenko with the upper body strength over top of Andrade, who's doing a bit of a good job to build a base and get back up.
Yeah, no, but again, Shevchenko's the one. The fight's always at the range that she wants it to be at. They're either all the way out or
rear naked choke attempt here from Shevchenko.
She doesn't have the hooks in, though. It's going to be tough to get. She just kind of jump into the position, but she might be able to. She does have a good squeeze, but Andrade's not really panicking right now, just kind of sitting in the choke so far, as Soren Bach famously did to Paddy Pimblett in their fight.
What an odd fight that was. Bellator's own Soren Bach. Don't get to see him very often. Shevchenko, like a hawk, just in on that entry, and she's got the back of Andrade here now.
Just kind of riding her up against the cage. This is one of those kind of Habib positions, if you will. She's trying to get that handcuff on the opposite side. But again, for Shevchenko, she's making Andrade carry her weight, really feel her presence, and that's going to be the key. Shevchenko both have great cardio, but if Shevchenko can just make sure that she's the fresher fighter in that 4th and 5th round, she should be able to run away with this fight as it progresses.
Shevchenko doing a great job. She's got the hands clasped. She's really looking, again, takedown heavy. And it's been all Shevchenko early. Again, those short little punches. You get the elbows that you have to worry about from Andrade, but no space for her to really land anything. She's just kind of stuck up against the cage here.
Well, yeah, you mentioned the elbows, but like those elbows aren't going to finish anything. They're just trying to get Valentina off her. She's got to focus on the hands, though. There's a reason that in wrestling it's illegal to clasp your hands together.
This is a very, very similar position. If you watch last night's PFL, Bubba Jenkins had Lance Palmer in this position just about all fight, just landing knees to the back of his thighs, really kind of slowed down his offense. And for Jenkins, I mean, he was doing a great job. Another takedown from Valentina Shivchenko.
She's not getting anything with them. That is the one saving grace for Andrade. It's not like Shevchenko's really able to get a lot of ground and pound and a lot of damage off in these positions so far, but she really is having her way in the wrestling transitions.
Yeah, I mean, Shevchenko continues to dominate. She gets these takedowns and automatically into side control. She's just kind of holding position here with about 10 seconds remaining in the round. But a great job early from the champion as we get to the close of this first round. And I mean, for me, It's pretty easy 10-9 for the champ in that one.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Now for Andrade, A, you got to get your back off the cage. You need to have A, better head movement, and B, you just have to pressure, but do it in a really smart way. You have to do it. You can't stay on the outside to where you're so far away you're getting picked apart, and you can't be so close into where she can get the takedown. And I understand that's much easier said than done. So for Andrade, feint a lot from the outside, try to draw out the attacks of Shevchenko. I doubt she's going to be able to do it because Valentina is so technically sound and so disciplined, but that's going to have to be the key.
You can see it from the UFC's website there, but the shots to the body from Andrade, she was landing the kicks early. She landed a couple of punches as well. She did a good job trying to invest in it, but again, it was the takedowns of Shevchenko in our first round that really won out. If you look at the total strikes, they do slightly favor Andrade, but again, she was in a lot of those defensive positions, landing the elbows, landing some of the punches, but not a whole lot out of it. Denny Rose just going hard in the paint on the Shevchenko train, and that's fine. You can invest in it. It is going that way so far, but it'll be interesting to see what we get in our second round between these two ladies for our flyweight title. Again, your longtime champ, Shevchenko, taking on the former strawweight queen in Jessica Andrade. We get set for a second round.
Again, Jessica Andrade trying to establish the middle of the cage. Tough fight for her. Like I said, she can't be all the way on the outside, but she can't be all the way on the inside. She's going to have to be in kind of that Goldilocks zone, if you will. And for Andrade, that's going to be a tough range to get into as she tries to land some overhand shots.
Almost landed a nice left hand. Andrade is trying to throw Shevchenko, and she gets thrown to the mat in her own right. And that's interesting because usually Andrade has the strength advantage over most people in the grappling and the wrestling.
Not a single person thought she would in this fight, though, let's be honest. Like, Shevchenko's doing what we know she can do. Physically, she is just so dominant, especially with a fighter moving up in weight. And that's kind of what I mentioned going into this fight. For Shevchenko, there's not a lot of true natural flyweights for her to fight. So at a certain point, she's going to clear out this division really quick.
Shevchenko doing a great job throwing those McGregor-esque shoulder strikes a la Donald Cerrone and just continuing to hold position on top from a half guard here. We'll see if she moves over to side control. She didn't really have much to offer inside, but where she has all the weight on top of the smaller fighter in Andrade, it'll be interesting to see also, will Dan Miragliotta, give Andrade the benefit of the doubt and stand this up?
She's in half control, so I doubt that's the Valentina's just been so dominant in this position. Like, you can't just hold on and expect to get stood up. You have to work to get back up to your feet. And we've seen Andrade work to get back up to her feet before. It's not like she can't do it. She's just kind of taking the lazy way out right now. So for Shevchenko, why would you do anything different? You've got the range down automatically. At range, you're just picking her apart with the jab and the straight right hand. And when she gets in too close, you're getting that body lock takedown every time. So Andrade is really going to have to figure out something new, really.
Andrade trying to get back up to her feet again. Valentina's still just happy to play this game in half guard. And for Andrade, it's those big movements that could cost as the fight goes on. But you found yourself in this position. Shevchenko goes to pull for a guillotine, and now it's Andrade working for a single leg.
Doing a good job getting back up to her feet. Andrade is. The good thing that Jessica's done so far is Valentina hasn't been able to capitalize on a lot of her takedowns yet, at least. She's been able to secure them, but she hasn't got an awful lot of damage. She hasn't threatened with the submission yet, but she's definitely winning these rounds as Andrade tries to go for one of her patented slams up against the cage. Valentina, too technically sound, and she's just so strong for this division that it is going to be really hard for anybody to outmuscle her. You have to remember, Valentina Shevchenko outmuscled Holly Holm, who really is a featherweight fighter, so somebody who's fought at 115 is not going to be an issue for someone like Shevchenko.
Nice knee up the middle by the champ who has her hands clasped, looking to take down Andrade, and again,
just
rinse and repeat.
Just great work by the champion. There's nothing Andrade can do to really defend that takedown. And
you've got the champion. Is she in a crucifix? You can't really see from this position.
Working.
Doesn't look like it, but she is working from a great position.
Oh,
now
yeah.
she has it. This is just like Volkan Oezdemir, Daniel Cormier territory.
Well, this is like Valentina, Caitlin Chukagian. This is how she finished that fight. So Valentina, great in this crucifix position. And for Jessica Andrade, you just kind of have to go scorched earth and do whatever you can to get out of this position.
Yeah, you got Valentina Shivchenko doing great work, landing nice elbows. Dan Miragliotta getting a good shot at this one, but
and this is one of those positions where if you're stuck in, the ref is not worried to stop the fight because these are significant shots that she's eating.
Yeah, Shevchenko doing a great job with the elbows. Now they're piecing her up. They're getting through. And listen, you've got Jessica Andrade, a bloody mess underneath. And that's the finish. The end of the second round. And still, Valentina Shivchenko. And Matt, if that was the best opportunity out of a fighter to win a title tonight, that is tricky because, listen, Jessica Andrade, she did her best. She went for some takedowns. She wasn't able to get them. Valentina Shivchenko, another win. And more importantly, another finish.
But that's the problem for Valentina. Like, who is next? At a certain point, like, you either go up and fight Amanda.
It's a remix to Ignition. You fight Amanda Nunes. I mean, that's about it.
But
really.
she's lost to her twice. That's my big problem. Like, there's not a real compelling next opponent for Valentina Shivchenko. I thought Andrade was going to offer her at least some sort of resistance, but that was a really one-sided fight for Shivchenko. So I just don't really know who out there is going to offer a competitive fight for Valentina at this point in this division. Unless Antonina one day decides, like, hey, we're going to be like the Plot Warrior and we'll fight each other for the title. I just don't know who's got the answer for the question that is Valentina.
Yeah, maybe we get like a Flying Melendez type situation and we're going to be just tight roping it into the cage. Sister against sister. Pavel as the referee. It's probably happened before.
Probably has.
But in this fight, I mean, it wasn't overly close. And you look at the finishing sequence in Crucifix. Again, you had mentioned it, but to me, again, Daniel Cormier, Volkan Oezdemir was such a premier finish in this position. There have been many. And for Valentina Shivchenko, it's old news. She's been here before.
Exactly. Like, we've seen her in this position, one of her most dominant positions on top. And that's the weird thing about Shevchenko. It feels like she has these certain positions that she is really comfortable kind of posturing up, if you will, and getting ground and pound off. And then she has other positions where she is just trying to be much more positionally aware and control from on top. So, again, just workman stuff from Valentina Shevchenko. Like, there's not a fighter who weighs 125 pounds, or whose female weighs 125 pounds, who has a chance of beating Valentina Shevchenko right now.
Big win for Valentina Shevchenko. She's got the monster can. Monster is what it is. There's a lot of better ones out there. Dragon Energy's good.
They are very good.
Wish they'd partner up with the boys, but you never know. Women's flyweight match for Shevchenko. We look at the rankings. Again, Andrade, she was number 1. You get Chukagian, you got Lauren Murphy, Jennifer Maia, Cynthia Calvillo, Joanne Calderwood, Araujo, Modafferi, and Grasso as your top 10. There's fights that are already spoken for. You can whip through the division, have a look, and see which ones are already booked. But, I mean, Matt, it is tricky because you go past Andrade, and is there a better opportunity? I mean, Joanne Calderwood's fighting Lauren Murphy next. Jessica I's fighting Jennifer Maia. Chukagian's fighting Araujo.
I'm telling you right now.
Roxanne Modafferi coming off a loss.
You pull a Caitlin Chukagian and you go sister hunting. Call out Antonina. Like, that's the best thing you should do. Because for Andrade, and here's the other thing for Andrade, she could go back down to 115. Like, she does have a bit of leeway as to where she does want to stay and which division she wants to claim as her own. So, again, for Valentina, I don't really know what's next. Most of the time, in most divisions, if anything, there's too many contenders for the belt. But the fact that Valentina just is so much better than everyone else in the division is making it really hard to find suitable contenders for her.
Just retire. Just retire and wait. Just retire and wait. No, I mean, make that paper. Make that paper. We're a pro fighter getting paid to show. So, yeah, just keep beating everybody you can. Don't know who this guy is wearing khakis in the background. Never seen him before. That guy definitely owns a yacht. And Ramon hitting us up in the super chat saying, just hit my that was easy button on behalf of Valentina. Yeah.
She deserved it.
Rain energy drinks are on the move. What's the one that they used to have at Costco?
The lemon one's not bad at the Rain.
Red Rain?
Red Rave.
Rave?
Red Rave was awful.
It was kind of like, I liked it.
For $4.
Yeah, it was kind of like Red Bull, but it was more sweet. I've got the Coke Energy because I wanted something different today. Oh, yeah, I do know Rain. They're the ones with, like, it looks
crown,
like a helmet. Yeah. Yeah, they're all right. They are what they are. But, yeah, I mean, Valentina Shevchenko, there's not much more to say. It's been dominance the whole time. Has she lost a few rounds to Joanna and Jennifer Maia? Sure, but
that's the worst thing we could say about you. You are nothing if not
Look
dominant.
at this guy with the red shirt. Wow. Interesting cast of characters back there.
It's a bunch of guys who look like they could have been on Forged in Fire at some point in their lives, and they've just decided that they were all going to get together now.
Christian Molina saying Lauren Murphy LOL. She was our 2020 Female Fighter of the Year, so don't LOL too hard.
She's not going to win, though, and that's the problem. Like, no one's beating Valentina at this point. Jessica Andrade was the only person who had a chance.
If you thought Archie Long earlier on tonight against Jeff Molina was tougher than a $2 stake because he could take an absolute beatdown in the third round, Lauren Murphy is a fighter for you.
Without a doubt. I'm just happy this fight didn't finish via some sort of leg injury. I'm over those. We've had 2 already. They've somewhat ruined my evening. I won't lie. Watching Chris Weidman snap his leg still is just branded into my brain. But again, great job for Valentina. I'd love to be able to hear what she's saying, but I'm sure she's just very happy and being like, hey, if you want to beat me, you better gain like 80 pounds.
Big time win for Shevchenko. We get the post-fight win speech. Matt, let's flip it on over to Our next fight, and we have a big one in the strawweight division, Matt. Zhang Weili coming off a Fight of the Year performance for Rose Namajunas. She's had performances like that. It's just unfortunate that Zhang Weili had a fight like that against Joanna, whereas Joanna had a good one against Rose in their second fight, and their first fight was pretty darn good too.
It was, and that's the thing. Again, you can't tell the story of this fight without talking about Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And for me, I just think that Joanna, it will be weird because Joanna has started posting on social media like, oh, I'll be back soon. So maybe it does depend on who wins this fight, or maybe they're just going to put her in there no matter what. For me, it comes down to, can Rose do anything to just get rid of the forward pressure of Weili? And I don't think she can. I think her wrestling is good, but not great. And when I look at the grappling, I honestly think Weili can hold her own in a lot of these grappling exchanges. But for Rose, if she's able to get on top, we know how tricky she is and how good she is at floating on top, especially, and not ever really just getting into one set position. So I do think Rose on the mat, especially, is going to give Weili some trouble. But I like Weili quite a bit in this next one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we do get in that one. Hep saying that Rain's got a lot of caffeine. I mean, listen, I like, what do I like? I like Bang for that reason, but Bang in Canada has less caffeine than it does in the States. That's kind of interesting. Jessica Andrade going back to the drawing board. We'll see her fight again. Always interesting. Like I said, when you see a fighter get interviewed when they get TKO'd, but it is what it is. Apparently there's a lot of chants going on. I can't tell. And there's an I love you out there. That's and nice. Now there's Jake Paul and Antonio Brown. A couple of people that attract a lot of hate. And there's Nick Diaz.
Nick Diaz looking weathered.
Nick Diaz did not anticipate being on camera.
No.
And Justin Gaethje, a guy that definitely likes to cause disturbances at restaurants as a joke.
He just talks a little too
much. Who are these people?
A bunch of Amish guys.
This guy's wearing a cowboy hat and suspenders, and I feel like, should I know who he is? I have no idea who that was.
Well, that was a neat cutaway to the crowd.
Can somebody tell me who that was? Yikes. If you're saying F. Ben Askren, realize that, I mean, he starched your boy, and our boy. He starched Ben Askren, so you can't get too mad at him. Nick? Who's Nick? Who is Nick? Oh, Nick Diaz. Jeez, I'm stupid.
Goodness gracious, Craig.
I just want to know who the strange men were with the mustaches and the cowboy hats.
And they just kept on appearing over and over. Like, there was more every time the camera would go back to the cage, which is odd. Hopefully we get a follow-up with those guys in the cage. But, again, I'm really excited for the next two fights. It will be interesting, though. I don't know how much Jorge Masvidal can improve, because at this point in his career, he's one of those fighters who I feel like he is kind of set in his ways to a certain degree, and he is going to get some wins no matter what, of course, and he's going to improve, but I just don't know how much he can do, and it is weird that we're dealing with a champion who defended his belt and then now is kind of moving backwards to where he was this time last year. So for Masvidal, I'm curious to see, A, how much the time off is going to help him, and B, just what version of Usman are we going to get? Are we going to get that, oh, I'm going to try to kill you guys, go for it, like we saw against Covington? Or are we going to see the more reserved guy that we saw in the first Masvidal matchup?
Meditation Station. We're straight-laced as can be. I've got smart water and Coke Energy. Matt's got a Gatorade, so homie, don't play that.
No.
Pat Barry striking coach in this one?
Pat Barry, hopefully not a life coach. That's all I'm going to say. It'll be interesting because for Weili, they did talk a lot about her grappling in the lead up to this fight, so I do feel like that has been a focal point for their gym and really for the camp leading into this. So we might see a more grappling version of Weili, but I really feel like at the end of the day, Weili's still good at Weili. She is that great counter striker on the feet. She's great with her combinations, great with her hand speed. It's going to be a really hard fight for Rose Namajunas, especially as this fight goes on. I do think it's going to be like a snowball going down a hill. It's going to keep on going. The momentum's going to keep on shifting for Weili, because I do think she's going to damage Rose like we saw Andrade do in the third round of their second fight. And for that reason, I think Weili's going to win, but I do think this is one of those fight of the night contenders.
To me, this was the one that was probably the tightest contest of all three of the title fights. And again, you could have a flash knockout in your main event. That much is true. We saw Jorge Masvidal. It was the technique in the Till fight. And yeah, you could say it was technique in the Askren fight, but hey, he knew what he was going to do, and Askren knew what he was going to do, and one canceled the other one out. We ended up with the quickest knockout in UFC history. And then for Masvidal, you look at the other fights. I mean, go to the Nate Diaz fight. Listen, he pieced him up, and Nate, and his face is so full of scar tissue that it just kind of evaded him. I'll be interested to see how Nick fares if he ends up fighting. Here's the weird thing. Remember when Nick's management was like, yeah, the guy's going to fight in early 2021? And now we're where we're at, and we have no fight in the horizon.
The UFC put out an image for UFC 235 of a Nick Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal poster. Like, that was a fight that was supposed to happen. I don't remember if it was 35 or 31, but anyways, that was a real fight that was booked at the time, and for whatever reasons, we never got that version, and kind of the rest is history for Jorge Masvidal. But we've got this tease so many times now for Nick Diaz that I don't really care until it is finally booked. Like, every year it feels like we get that Nick Diaz tease where it's like, you know, he could fight Conor, but at this point, until he is in a real training camp with a UFC like promotional picture actually put out, I don't really believe he's going to come back. I don't.
Nick Diaz, Mickey Gall, the fight that we knew we needed. Or Mike Perry. That'd be a fight.
That could be a fun one. Yeah, just get Nick Diaz back on the horse, but it will be interesting for Diaz because he's too big of a name just to match him up with some random guy in the division. Maybe they bring back Anthony Pettis for a one-off. BJ Penn's not getting cleared no matter what. So, yeah, for Diaz, it really just comes down to what opponent they feel comfortable matching him up with in the future.
So we got Thug Rose taking on Zhang Weili, and Matt, this is such an interesting fight because it was a weird build-up in the later stages, and listen, you don't like to see the way that they kind of went at it, but Zhang Weili wants to be friends. Rose Namajunas said she wants to be friends. We can all be friends at the end of this. Nick Diaz versus Kevin Holland over in the comment section. We'll see what happens. For Rose Namajunas, the weird thing is, it seems like forever ago she came into the UFC, and for Zhang Weili, it was like, bam! Here she is, now she's champ, and you might have slept on her, but you can't anymore.
Rose Namajunas is kind of like Matt Mitrione, where it's like, wait, you have only this many fights? Because she just came into the UFC so young in her career, and I understand she hasn't been as active, especially the last couple of years, but this was a fighter who you really did kind of see develop since she came into the sport. You saw her go from losing to Carlos Perez and being very green in her grappling and her stand-up to really just improving game in, game out, year in, year out, to becoming the champion. Yeah, the last few years have been kind of weird for her with her winning the belt, having her rematch against Uriah, and then losing the belt, and then not really being active. I think this is a great chance for her to reestablish herself, not only as one of the best fighters in women's MMA, but one of the biggest names in it as well. And for Weili, you're not really champion until you beat Andrade, Joanna, and Rose. Those are the three people who really carried that division throughout its early years. So if Weili can finally be kind of that three-headed monster that was in charge of this division for so many years, Weili really establishes herself as, this is finally my division, I'm the strawweight queen.
And then when you look after, Rose in the division, always the boogie woman that is now, well, you can say Joanna, but Tatiana Suarez, and then after that, Yan Xiaonan, like Mackenzie Dern, it's tough.
Tatiana, just hear me out. Tatiana Suarez is so good at fighting, she's only allowed to do it about once every 3 years. That's how dangerous she is. No, it's unfortunate that, I think it is a neck injury that's kept her out so long, and it is unfortunate. That's not really something you can play around with, but it's wild when we were talking about the Nina Nunes, not Nina Answer, I've caught myself, but the fact that her last fight was Tatiana Suarez, and Suarez hasn't fought since then. Nina Answer started a family since that fight, so it just really has been insane and really unfortunate to see just sort of what the career of Tatiana Suarez has turned into. Because I do think she's one of those fighters who she could turn up tomorrow, and if she can put 2 or 3 really nice performances together, she's right back at the top of this division.
Be very interesting to see, again, what we get out of Rose Namajunas and what we get out of Zhang Weili, because she's been a very good pressure fighter, very well-rounded. She can mix in the wrestling. She can mix in the striking. And for Rose Namajunas, same thing. Equally as well-rounded. Really long-rangey striker. Really good on the ground. Really deceptive with her groundwork. And if you want to see a really gross fight, and they showed it in the pre-fight montage, but Zhang Weili, when she fought old Chap Lips Jessica Aguilar, absolute beatdown.
And again, I do think both these fighters, like, here's the thing. Both these fighters have a lot of crossover, and that Rose Namajunas is going to have her moments on the feet, just like Weili's going to have her moments on the mat. This matchup just really is so well matched up, because you have two great, well-rounded martial artists who both kind of have their specialties. Like, Rose, she has her long-range attacks, she has her check left hook, she has a ground game, but Weili, great straight right, great leg kicks, and great top pressure too. So I think this fight really is going to give just a little bit for everybody.
The comments section, a little bit split in the picks if we have a look at Fight Night Picks over on the Instagrams, Matt. Maybe not much of a surprise, but if you do look, I mean, you have Rose Namajunas coming in 36% of the vote, 228 total votes, 409 for Zhang Weili. It's good for 64%. So the majority on the Instagrams going with Zhang Weili to get the win, but a lot of vocal support over in the chat for Rose Namajunas. To me, again, like I said, this was the trickiest of the 3 title fights to try and get a read on.
Yeah, I would say so. And here's the thing. I'm pretty confident Usman's going to win. That's the honest thing. And Valentina, she was just such a big favorite. For this, we could see that old Rose who has the great volume, the good power, and the gas tank that can last all day. But I really do think Weili, she's kind of that new version. And for every division, it takes a while for the division to really settle, and then you have your top contenders really rise up to the top. And for women's bantamweight, you saw that Ronda Rousey, she was able to beat a lot of good fighters. And then once Amanda Nunes really came along, you saw what greatness looked like. With Weili, we saw... And I don't want to say this about Rose, Andrade, and Joanna yet, because this could take a couple years for the storyline really to play itself out. But I do think we had our Joanna. She was the Ronda Rousey, if you will. Then we had the title exchange hand a couple times. I do think Weili is one of those great fighters who is going to hold this title for a very long time.
Red Sox fan for life 13, we really appreciate you. And when you've got a guy in number 0 in the 8th inning hitting home runs off them, that was a rough game to watch today. But it is what it is. Vu Dude really feeling the Rose Namajunas win. Denny Rose going with Zhang. Prince Vegeta's son with Rose. And Scott kind of half and half. And Meditation Station going all out on Chael Sonnen. I think the Submission Underground Zone will get ya. Joanna saying, let's see who I'll be fighting next. They popped the tweet up there. She said she's the baddest bee in the planet, and she wants the next fight.
She's one of them.
And they're probably going to make it. They probably will. Because, again, for me, you look at Suarez, you look at Dern, and you look at Yan Xiaonan. They probably equally need a win to get the fight.
I would say, unless they do end up doing, like, Dern versus Joanna, maybe if they really want to try to build the star of Dern or something. I'm not saying that's the best idea, because that definitely leaves out... Like, what's Joanna amazing at? Well, defending takedowns and piecing people up on the feet. So that's a very dangerous matchup if they are trying to develop talent in Dern. So, again... For Joanna, it is odd because it's not very often that we really have a 3-person title fight, because Joanna is such a presence in this division, such a big name that she is always sort of in the background. We had that thumbnail there a few weeks ago where Hamzat Shemaev was way in the background of Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad. It does feel like Joanna does lurk in the background, because whether she fights the winner or the loser, you know she's going to be matched up probably with one of these two. And you know that fight is going to be amazing. Like, I know I complained that Masvidal got the rematch against Usman and he didn't get a win in the meantime. I wouldn't complain if Joanna fought Weili again. Like, that's how good their first fight was in my mind. So I'd be more than happy with seeing her have either a third fight with Rose or that rematch with Weili.
Rematches usually get wonky. We have the champ coming in here. 21 fight win streak, 4th highest striking rate in UFC strawweight history. And she hasn't been around with the UFC for all that long. If you do look at it for both of these women, I mean, holy smokes. For Rose Namajunas coming in here, she had... The fights with Andrade, one good, one bad. The better one in her last one. But it's weird, you know, you look at it, and for Zhang Weili, she's coming in off that fight of the year. It was about 13 months ago. And then you focus on a fight with Rose Namajunas where, again, 9-4 is 10-4. You go off what the promotion tells you. But a split decision went off over Andrade 9 months ago. And boom, you're into a title fight.
But again, beating Andrade means that you deserve the title fight. No one else has beat Andrade and who hasn't gone on to win the title. Like, Andrade has only lost to Joanna, Rose, and Weili at strawweight. It's because she's the lead down there. So for Rose, I do think she is the rightful challenger in this fight. But again, this is a big mountain to climb. Having such a big layoff, you've only really fought Jessica Andrade and Joanna in your last few fights. And I'm going to throw something out there. This is a bit of a hot take, but I feel like it's going to energize all of us and it's going to cause some discussion. Is Rose Namajunas not just Cain Velasquez? How do we not know that Rose Namajunas' style isn't just really good at fighting two specific fighters? Because Cain was great, but he was even better against Bigfoot Silva and against JDS. And you look at his best wins, it's a 4-fight win streak that was both those. It was he beat JDS twice and Bigfoot twice. To me, I don't know if Rose is going to have that same kind of success in this fight. I do feel like if you have a striker with enough volume, they could overwhelm her just with their volume, and I think that's what we're going to get.
One of my favorite fights, Mark Hunt, Bigfoot Silva won. What a good one. What a banger.
No contest.
The whole time. Great fight. Listen, both of these fighters, again, very, very skilled, very, very dynamic. And for Rose Namajunas, who's yelling at who knows who.
I'm Lithuanian.
Yeah, we're getting something going down. Weighing in at 114.5. Both fighters at 114.5 for the fight at 115. You don't often see that, but you did here tonight. Namajunas, 9-month layoff. Zhang Weili, 13 months. Joanna, 13-month layoff as well, and she wants next. And are we going to get a scenario where it's like Charles Barkley out on the asphalt? Nah, be gone. Be gone, Charles Barkley. I don't know. Maybe we'll get something like that.
I hope so. I hope we get a moment like that.
Pass the ball around.
I'm just thinking that Rose has One More Time by Daft Punk stuck in her head while everyone's yelling, but I really doubt that's the case. Weili looks calm, cool, and collected. That's the thing. I never know what to think, and I would like to get your opinion on this because I never know what to put into this. When Rose does put on that act, because I think to a certain degree that is an act. Like, no one really is getting ready for the fight, trying to be like, start yelling at me and I'm going to yell back. Whereas Weili, she just has that very laid back approach to it. So I always just wonder, like, what is the mindset and what really is the difference going into the fight when you do have a fighter who's so laid back and just fighting is so natural to them, like someone in Weili, versus Rose, who it does seem like she just kind of have to hype herself up for the moment.
I have no idea. I have no good answer for that one.
That's fair. I think that is something to look into because I do think there's something to be said for fighters who just always have that flow state. Because for Weili, for her fighting in the first round, her fighting in the fifth round, it's not like she's a fighter who takes a lot of times to really get reads on her opponent. She's the same fighter no matter what. So again, for Rose, it really comes down to the improvements that Rose been able to make.
All right, Matt, we're getting set for our second of the title fights. If you want to sync up with us, maybe join it late. We're going to start the timer. Yeah. You can be on time, and we're going to comment through the entire co-main and main event that we have left over. Tim Tebow hanging out in the background. We can see him there. Denny Rose enjoying it. Joshua's hanging out. And here we go. We get set for our second title fight. Zhang Weili looking to make another successful, well, really a great successful title defense. She's able to get a win over the former champion. Rose Namajunas is taking center cage, and you can see Zhang a little bit heavy on the lead foot. Rose moving around, floating like a butterfly, stinging like well, I was gonna say a rose. I was gonna make a rose joke, but yeah, Zhang Weili looking to do her thing, and Rose again, a lot of movement here, getting hit by a jab.
But for Rose, it's the great movement on the feet. That's the one thing I don't think she ever gets the respect for. Like, she does have great movement on the feet, backwards and forwards, and her footwork can be used either defensively or offensively, and that's just a really dynamic aspect of her game. For Weili, it will be interesting because she does throw in combos, so that normally does help when you have an evasive target in front of you. So if Weili can throw her combos, realizing that okay, punch 1, 2, and 3 might not land, but I really have to bank on 4 and 5 to do the damage afterwards, I think that's a sound game plan.
A lot of movement, a lot of deception and trickery from the blue corner. Zhang Weili just looking to get the reads, starting to try and piece up that lead leg of Namajunas to slow the movement here.
Yeah, and just two fighters making a lot of reads on the outside right now. Like, Weili's landed a couple good shots. Rose has responded to... Oh! Head kick by Rose. Weili,
and it's all over!
Wow.
Rose Namajunas, your champion. Wow.
Round. Wow.
Oh, Keith Peterson got to hold your former champ up. Wow.
That
Rose
was
Namajunas with a huge win. Holy smokes.
Dang.
Oh, and
Weili's upset, but...
Oh, wow.
She's hurt. She was hurt bad.
What a finish. Holy smokes.
Yeah, she was hurt. She was out.
Yeah, she was 100% out.
What a kick. That was the same thing that put out Michelle Waterson, too, before she submitted her. Great. Wow. The speed. That was the key for Rose. That was impressive.
Wow. What a win for the former champion. Holy smokes. Rose Namajunas is back?
She is. She and new. Wow. So maybe we do get... I'm assuming we get part 2, Weili Rose, and then maybe we get Joanna versus Mackenzie Dern in the meantime. But wow, she just shook up that whole division. That was a beautiful lead left high kick. And that's the thing about Trevor Whitman. Like, he's going to help you. Oh, her ankle went back like she was, what's his name? Yeah, Weili was hurt bad.
Oh, big win for Rose Namajunas. And you talk about it. I mean, really shaking up the division. That is an incredible win. And for Zhang Weili, I mean, listen, good stoppage by Keith Peterson. It was a good one from
Yeah, she was upset afterwards. And I understand she lost her belt, but wow. Yeah, Weili thought she was going low with the leg kick, trying to bring her front leg out instead of checking it. Check your leg kicks, folks. Chris Weidman had to learn that the hard way. And then, yeah, ended up eating the head kick. That was just really impressive. But yeah, same head kick that she hit Michelle Waterson with. Just a beautiful performance. Great timing, too, by Rose. That was nice stuff.
Man, I had a hard time trying to pick that one, and a great win for Rose Namajunas and Joe Rogan going insane over that one.
Hashtag Thug Rose. That was wild.
What a win for Rose
She's
Namajunas.
not like Kane Phoenix. There you go. I was incorrect. See, I'm going to be wrong sometimes. No, that was a really nice performance by Rose Namajunas. That was just beautiful stuff.
Oh, great win. Michael Ralph losing it, waking up the neighborhood on that one. And an insane performance in a first-round knockout. What a night of fights we've had so far.
Did not think that was going to be the outcome. But yeah, like you said, this has been an absolutely wild event. And we still have the main event coming up next.
Pat Barry making people cry.
Maybe we should all watch documentaries before we fight.
Wow. What a kick. What a win.
That was impressive stuff by Rose. It really was. And new. That's... Wow. Again, that was a really impressive performance. And for Rose, there's so many cool contenders that you can go on and fight next. And the fact that Rose, she does have such a dynamic ground game. She has the speed on the feet. She has the power. Like, Rose really is the total package. And it's going to be tough to beat her. Thinking that I thought Wei Li was going to be, the much faster athlete, the much more technical. But I was definitely proven wrong in this.
Big win for Rose Namajunas to regain the belt. Holy smokes.
Wow.
What a finish to that fight. And yeah, that shakes things up. That really does.
Rose Namajunas is one of the craziest careers in like women's MMA history. Crazy that she's able to get the belt back and recapture it. Just an absolute wild ride from the top to the bottom, and now back to the top again. Just an absolutely wild ride for Rose Namajunas, who's only 10-4 in her career. Just absolutely insane for the amount of title fights that she's been in.
Wow, what a finish win. A minute and 18 into it by knockout. She lands that head kick. She follows it up with a ground and pound. And again, good stoppage by the man himself, Keith Peterson. But wow, I mean, yeah. And now you have to figure, I mean, what's next? Do you go back to the trilogy in a trilogy where, again, Rose already has the 2 wins?
I think that's why you do the rematch against Wei Li first. Give Wei Li the chance, I guess, because there isn't really a clear-cut contender next. We gotta talk about it. It does feel like there's a lot of fighters who are just that one statement win away from really being able to get a title shot. So personally, if you want to kind of mix it up a little bit, I would do Joanna against whoever you assume is the number 1 contender right now. Do that fight. The winner of that could get the title shot afterwards, and then you just run this one back in the meantime, because I think this is a fight that fans would like to see, but it is hard to say, hey, Wei Li deserves an immediate rematch after she just got knocked out in the first round. So just a really interesting division, and I think it's safe to say that strawweight is by far the best division in the women's side of the sport by far right now.
I mean, what a win. You get a good angle at that kick, and she's hammering away. Wei Li wasn't into it. Like we said, morning combat? Wow, that's interesting. That tweet wasn't up there for very long.
No, it was not. But wow, just again, really impressive stuff by Rose. She's really turned it around for her career, and she's just a great, well-rounded MMA fighter now. It's really wild to see how far she's come.
An insane fight there, and you talk about it. That snaps a 21-fight win streak for Zhang Wei Li. And out of the fighters from China, 0-4 on the night. You had Mongolia's Dana Bakary getting the win earlier on against Kevin Natividad, kind of close by. But yeah, that's insane. Huge win for Rose Namajunas there.
And we still have what the people call Street Jesus versus the Nigerian Nightmare next. Yeah, still stuff to get excited for, guys. This card's kind of flew by. I know there has been filler in between the fights, but just wild to see how fast these fights have been on the main card.
Matt gets stuck on 99, has to wait till next week. But man, what a card we've got. I mean, you've got Yuri Prochazka taking on a really tough out in Dominic Reyes, and a great card overall. It is a really sneaky one.
Oh, it has been. Next week, it will be a great card. Even in the co-main event, Giga Chikadze, Cub Swanson, that's a fight I've been really excited for way too long, if I'm being honest.
I bet you Gavin Tucker wish he got Cub Swanson.
He probably did. I'm guessing Giga's very happy he did get Cub Swanson. Just a really fun fight between what I consider one of the more exciting prospects in really the division against Cub Swanson, who, listen, Cub Swanson, he's just great for the sport. Like, Cub Swanson's Matt Brown. He's just that guy. He's that gritty veteran in the division who can still turn back the clock and just put it on a prospect every now and then. So it still is a fun fight, and a fight that Cub Swanson is going to have a chance to win, but a really fun fight in the co-main event.
Yeah, that's tricky. And I mean, they're showing Zhang Wei Li pushing away Keith Peterson. Keith gets it. Like,
what is it with us interviewing finished fighters though tonight? It is kind of odd. I understand, like the Jim Crute one, that makes sense to me. He heard us like, don't interview Chris Weidman because of course hospital first. But like, it's just really odd to see that Joe Rogan's decided, yeah, I'll just interview everyone afterwards as well.
Strange. So strange. We don't get that opportunity here, so we just talk on.
Yeah, exactly. We normally come up with our own talking points, but again, going into this next fight, there really has been a lot of talk about just, Marty Fake Newsman, Marty Snoozman. Like, is he going to be that boring fighter who really did... I know we disagree on this, but it is a real thing. Like, when 1.6 million people buy your pay-per-views, and you go out there and stomp a guy's feet for 25 minutes, like, you did lay an egg to a certain degree. I understand winning is the only thing that matters at the end of the day, but when you have that many eyes and that big of an audience on you at the end of the day, you want to not only put on a good performance, but be impressive as you do it. And Usman wasn't that impressive in the first fight. Like, yeah, he beat Masvidal, but Masvidal had the excuse of, 6 days notice, you didn't even finish me. I think we're going to get that motivated Usman who's really going to be going in there looking for a finish. But if we've learned anything just from the main card, kicks mean a lot. Like, kicks were what decided our first fight, our second fight, and our fourth fight on the main card so far. So leading into this main event, maybe Jorge Masvidal's been practicing some crazy kicks and some Barbosa down at ATT, but I'm really excited for this main event because it has been a weird night for upsets, so it should be an interesting one.
Matt, you're kind of like Will Ferrell in that SNL skit. Like, you're having issues with voice modulation.
Craig, it's 1 a.m. and it's hard to be consistent.
It's 10-1 local, but through 12 fights, it's been insane. I mean, so far we had what? Carnelossi, now Leon Na. That fight was bonkers. And Ariane Carnelossi getting the win. Molina getting the win over Archie Long. You had Vargas coming up with a big upset over Rung Zhu. Dana Bakary getting the win over Kevin Natividad. Sabatini all over Tristan Connolly in that one. Brendan Allen, the striking looked great. The heel hook to get the finish. Dwight Grant getting the win over Sekulic. Very controversial with the fans. Randy Brown, not so controversial over Alex Oliveira. Anthony Smith, somewhat controversial against Jimmy Crute. Uriah Hall, it's only controversial if you're Chris Weidman's leg.
Unfortunately, Chris Weidman's now been TKO'd for the 6th time in his career.
Shevchenko getting the win over Andrade. Namajunas over Zhang Weili. And now we have Usman and Masvidal in the rematch. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. We're going to get an interesting one coming up.
I really think we could, and really everything, at least coming off the co-main event, it does feel like upsets are in the air. So maybe Jorge Masvidal is going to be able to make some magic happen in tonight's main event. But again, this is a tough hill to climb. The fact that he did lose from once before already, and we know that Usman does keep on getting better, fight in and fight out. I get it. There was that whole 30% thing when he fought Emil Mech, but the version that we're getting now is definitely 100% Kamaru Usman, and he's 100%, and I hate to use this because in all of his commercials, he's a problem. He really is, and it's not only the wrestling, it's not the striking. The gas tank of Usman really is a big weapon that he has in all of his fights. And the fact that Masvidal did tire out in the first fight, I know he didn't have a full training camp. I know he's going to be in better shape in this fight. But I think at a certain point, it is going to bottom out. Like, you can only get into such a good shape. And I don't know if Masvidal can be in there in the 5th round with the same kind of cardio that Usman has. And for those reasons, I do think Usman's going to be really able to put it on Masvidal in the way that he's going to be able to muscle him around the cage. He's going to be able to take him down a lot more consistently than he was able to do in the first fight.
Matt, really interesting one. I mean, Voodoo's hanging out, and it's late where he's at. Morgan Brown hanging out. We appreciate you. But yeah, I mean, you get a bit of a different look from the hair. Ken Fitzsimmons, isn't there a full moon tonight? Maybe there is. There's something, because MGK's hitting people in the crowd, having fun with it. It looks like quite the event down in Florida.
It does. You know, if
Machine Gun Kelly's hanging out,
and Tim Tebow
a lot of fun.
Exactly. I doubt they're sitting together.
Yeah, Tim Tebow, like, hey, great baseball player is what he is. But we're getting set for a main event. And again, usually with these cards, we're done at about 2 o'clock. We're about 1 o'clock now. You have a 5-round title fight coming up. Usman Masvidal. A lot to really look forward to in a fight where, did Masvidal really deserve the title shot? Probably not, but they're doing him a favor and he gets it anyway.
Exactly, and this is one of those things where, like, I tried to get the perspective of some of my friends who don't follow MMA that much, and I'm convinced they really only know anything about the sport because they know me and I'm so heavily entrenched in it, but I did just try to see, like, what is sort of the general fans' interest in the fights today, because the first fight was so interesting, and there was that storyline of, well, Masvidal's flying across the world, like, could he do it on 6 days' notice? And honestly, it was kind of lukewarm. Like, I did get a few texts from people who are sort of, you know, the casual observers of the sport, but I didn't get a lot like I normally do, and it will be interesting to see what kind of star power did Masvidal bring in their first fight, and what kind of advantage did that give Usman? Did Usman get any shine off Masvidal because of it? If Usman could go out there and put on such performances where he can finish Masvidal, I really think he can get a lot of his shine, and he does have some star qualities. I just don't think Usman's ever going to be that, like, GSP, whereas every time he goes, you're like, oh, that's at least 700,000 pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the votes at Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, 458 for Usman to 201 for Masvidal. It's about 69 to 31% in that respect. Usman, pretty big favorite in this one in the rematch. And again, you had the first one, it was what, 49-46 and 250-45s for the champ. So are you going to get all wrestling out of Usman, or are you going to get the boring fight where he's stomping the feet like we did the last time? It'll be interesting to see how the fans play into it, if they do whatsoever. I mean, Anthony Smith was amped up. He got a win. The fans had his back, but you saw it out of Usman his last time out against Burns. It was just all striking, and he ended up finishing him.
And he looked great, too. The one thing about Jorge Masvidal, though, and I know Usman's not a big finisher, so it's not like there's a lot of people predicting an Usman finish in this fight, but Masvidal's tougher than a $2 steak. He really is. Like, you've got to hit him with absolute clubs to get him out of there. You have to remember, Darren Till, who's a middleweight and a big middleweight, cracked him with a really good shot, hurt him at the start of their fight, and then Masvidal came back to win. So, not only the recovery, but just the overall durability of Masvidal really is something to marvel. So, if Usman is trying to get the finish, like he's been saying in the lead-up, he's really going to have to be that over-the-top aggressive kind of fighter in this fight, because it is not easy to get a guy like Masvidal out of there.
Prince Vegeta's son saying, let's go Masvidal, and Denny Rose saying, this has been a weird event. Wouldn't be surprised if Jorge wins.
True.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. I mean, listen, you've got two really different fighters in this. I mean, for Kamaru Usman, you look at it, the one loss on his record some time ago, he has a tidy little win streak coming into this one. For Masvidal, he's been beaten, but he always comes back. And listen, does his game change up a whole lot fight over fight? Not necessarily. But the basics are there, and when he throws things in combination, looks amazing doing it.
He really is. Like, I feel like we keep on comparing what Masvidal does against Usman and then just saying Usman does it better. So I'm just going to say what Masvidal does really well and can give troubles with. The calf kicks are going to give Usman trouble. Usman really is just a primary boxer. I know his striking has gotten a lot better, especially as he's been champ and when he's kind of shifted his camp, not only just staying at Sanford MMA, but training with Trevor Whitman up at Elevation as well. I kind of like the fact that he has gone back to Sanford, though. Not fully, but he was training at Sanford a little bit for this camp. Like, he's gone to both, and he has a great relationship with both camps, which is a
And the
good
extreme couture and the Ngannou in his corner. And
I like all of this, because if you're Usman, you're in the same boat as Valentina Shivchenko. At a certain point, the more bodies you can get and the more different looks you can get is going to help you overall. So for Usman, unless he does get hit with that one big shot, I just don't see how Masvidal's going to be able to get it done. I don't think he has the submission ability off his back to really worry Usman to not go for the takedown. But the one thing I will say about Masvidal, his ability to punch in combination is unlike most guys in the UFC. Like, I don't care. Usman could do nothing but train his boxing for the next 2 years, and he still wouldn't be the same level of boxer as a Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal's really good at... He's great at doing that Canelo thing where he'll roll with the punches and then respond immediately with them. It's something that I really like with Masvidal, especially his back up against the cage. So I do think there's areas for Masvidal to win this fight. I'm just in the boat that I think Usman is going to go down as one of the GOATs. I really do. I think when you look at his skill set and his ability to improve in and out of every fight, I just think Usman's the total package.
Guys, real quick, in the prelims, didn't you think Sekulic won? I had it round 1 and 2 for Grant, and it's not just because I picked him to win. It was just when he got on top, when he had the takedown, he was actually landing ground and pound. Sekulic would get the takedown, get position, hold it, and not really do a whole lot with it. So for those reasons, I had Grant winning. But Sekulic looked great at the end of the third. It's just, he did the same thing against Namiv. He waited, third round, boom, I'm going to go for it. And unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to get the win.
So my problem is, no one won round 1 and 2, and Sekulic obviously won round 3. So you're going to get scorecards all over the place just by that. But I generally do agree with you. Like, it's hard to say Grant won both those first 2 rounds, but if you want to give it both to them, then you definitely can have it 2 rounds to 1 for him. So I don't think it was a great decision, but I wouldn't throw it in the bag of a robbery.
Zachary's got Usman. I've got Usman to kick off, or to end, I guess, the question mark kicks parlay. It was Randy Brown and Kamaru Usman to get the win. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what we get out of this fight. But, again, Jorge Masvidal coming out of here with ATT. Be interesting to see, you know, you see the pictures on the socials. You have the fighters in the similar weight classes. Luis Pena, you've got Mateusz Gamrot over there. You've got a lot of really good fighters. But just to see the improvements that we could have out of an older Jorge Masvidal and what we get exactly in this fight.
And again, I've said
BMF title behind him.
I hope is it on the line? Like, is Usman the BMF title, and if he finishes Masvidal, is that how you acquire
Well, you
the
can't
title?
walk it out if you're not willing to give it up.
No, exactly. And Kawa's definitely not giving that up right now, so he's going to be holding it. Just an odd fight. And for Masvidal,
Who's the guy with the petticoat?
I don't know. Masvidal's transcended. He's just kind of like a sports star now, not really just an MMA star. So for him, this really is a big spectacle, just really in the sports world. Like, I'm sure Stephen A. Smith and the boys will be talking about this on Monday, because this isn't just another UFC pay-per-view. This does have kind of that added allure of, no, Jorge Masvidal and Usman are fighting at the top of it. So, again, final pick. I'm going to say Usman, Probably by decision. Now, I'm not even going to throw in the caveat of maybe a late round stoppage. I just think Usman's probably going to win every single round of this fight. I do think it's going to go a lot like the first one.
Morgan Brown hitting us up in the super chat. We appreciate you and everybody for tuning in throughout the main card fight companion. If you want to toss us a like and a sub, we certainly appreciate you. Matt, it has been a time. I mean, we're almost 2 hours into it, and we're finally getting ready for our main event of the evening. And for Jorge Masvidal, again, fastest finish in UFC history. They popped it up there, the Ben Askren fight. That's a highlight that's going to get played till the end of time.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be one of those, like, Anthony Pettis Showtime kicks where you're just going to start making drinking games with your friends. Like, hey, do a shot every time they share the Showtime kick.
Do a shot every time Clay Collard pieces him up.
You would have died. You'd be dead. You'd die of alcohol poisoning. Clay Collard, who knew?
Everybody in Idaho.
Everyone in Idaho. Anthony Pettis put on a good performance, though. That was just a great fight.
Really, really good fight and a good ending to it, I guess, if you're a Pettis fan. But Jorge Masvidal making the walk into the cage, and he is here, and Mike Brown standing behind him. You want to talk dedicated coaches. Mike Brown, whole quarantine process to be in Horiguchi's corner for his last Ryzen event. I mean, just a fella from Maine doing it on the high stage.
He really is one of those guys like, oh no, I'm married to my job. Like, I don't know if Mike Brown has kids and a wife or anything, but he is just so dedicated to his fighters. And you must appreciate that, being a fighter who's coached by Mike Brown, knowing that this coach is going to do everything in their ability to make sure that you're a better fighter. And from a guy like Mike Brown, former WEC champ, been in there with some of the best fighters in the world. Yeah, he lost to Aldo per se, but his 2 wins over favorite. Like, Mike Brown knows what he's doing, and a really well-rounded guy too. So I can't say enough great things just about the coaching of Mike Brown.
Big time fight coming up, Matt. I mean, Kamaru Usman set to make the walk. He's going to have the heavyweight champion, the baddest man on the planet, making the walk with him. Baker Mayfield is in the house. Just re-up for 2022 with the Cleveland Browns. You'll love to see it. And Ben Peake went with Clay and Brendan Loughnane. Brendan Loughnane looked amazing, and Shimon Moraes' chin did not.
No, it really didn't. Poor Shimon. Just never really held up to the hype. Ugh.
Yikes.
Loughnane looked good, though.
Big fight feel for this one. Kamaru Usman feeling it, making the walk. And like we said, I mean, he's going to have the champ in his corner. He was in the corner of Francis Ngannou when he took on the really tough out that is Stipe Miocic. So interesting chain of events for that one. Denny Rose saying, what's with the booing? I don't know. I can't hear it, so I really don't know.
People like booing Usman, though, and that's the weird thing. This does feel a little bit like John Jones DC, where it's like, hey, everyone, you should obviously be cheering when DC comes out and boo when John Jones comes out, but they did the exact opposite, and let's say you should be cheering Kamaru Usman and booing Jorge Masvidal, but it just feels like that would be the natural progression of this fight. You have the good guy and the bad guy, but right now Usman, it is weird. Do you think Usman ever will be able to become a star? Like, at a certain point his skills will just be so undeniable that it will start to attract the mainstream audience, or do you think he always kind of will just be like maybe an above average UFC champion?
He's like a Josh Koscheck.
I expected a bigger answer, but okay.
He's like a Josh Koscheck.
But Josh Koscheck never sold 1.6 million. Like, do you not think there's a way for him to get to that point?
No, I really don't. Like, he's put on so many impressive performances. I think his last one was the one that should have won him over. And I mean, if you're still getting booed, just ride it out.
I guess, and for me, I really do think a lot should be weighted on this performance for Usman. If he is going in there, let's say he goes in there ground and pound TKOs Masvidal like Curtis Blades did to Alistair Overeem, where it's one of those things like, oh my god, stop. Then I do think Usman can have some potential to the point where he does get brought up and like, hey, he'll go on a talk show or he'll be on like a First Take, a guy like that. But I do think there is somewhat of a limit to him, just personality-wise, because he's not a guy who's really going to go out of his way when he's not actively getting ready for a fight, who's going to be in the headlines. Like, unless Usman's in training camp, you're not really hearing about him in the off-season, if you will. So I do think there's a certain ceiling to his star potential, but I do think he's one of those weird fighters who's on the bubble. Like, one weird turn, he could kind of become a star, and if he just keeps on doing what he's doing, he could just kind of, go in and have kind of the Tim Sylvia career, if you will, and be good, but just not get the recognition for it.
The maniac, Tim Sylvia. And, hey, I mean, you look at this one, Kamaru Usman doing the glove taps. You've got the champ holding his flip-flops. You love to see it. But a guy representing multiple different gyms. I mean, there was a cross-training with Extreme Couture, a little bit at Stanford just to get the reps in, and primarily out of Elevation with Trevor Whitman. You can see him in the corner. You've got the man himself. One really tough out. Justin Gaethje hanging out in the crowd. Pete saying change your name to MMA Nerds.
That's what we are.
I spent too much on the merch and everything else, so it's too late now. Yeah.
So a lot of people have brought up the fact that Burns hurt Usman in the first round of the fight, but again, I really think the crowd is going to play a big factor in this fight. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say because I'm a big proponent of that. No crowds. I don't really think it changed that made that much. For Usman, I think he needed the fact that he was fighting a friend. He needed that personal wake-up shot. He's not going to need that sort of cold shower, if you will, to wake him up before this fight. He has 20,000 people booing for him and or cheering for him. I'm not really sure right now. But that's going to be enough of a wake-up call, I think, so that he's not going to have to go in there and really get his chin tested before he can let his game speak for itself. I think he is going to be really moving forward quick. We're going to see him really push a hard pace early, I think, to test that cardiovascular of Masvidal. Because Masvidal, after that second round in their first fight, wasn't completely exhausted, but he was spent to the point where I wasn't that concerned. If you were cheering for Usman, you weren't that concerned of a finish for Masvidal. You know what I mean? Like, he had expended himself enough to that point that you weren't really concerned about a finish. I'm curious to see at what point will Masvidal fall off now that he does have a full training camp. Can he now get it to the end of the third round, to the end of the fourth round, even before he starts to fall off?
Big time fight feel. Masvidal talking into the camera. We're getting set for our main event of the evening. Kamaru Usman taking on Jorge Masvidal. They're showing the odds into the stats where Usman a minus 435 favorite, but you saw it in the last fight. I mean, you had the man, or well, not the man. You had Rose Namajunas picking up a big underdog win. Valentina was a big favorite. But I mean, hey, Anthony Smith hit as an underdog so far. Like, it's been an interesting night for the underdogs.
There's something in the air tonight. Maybe Jorge Masvidal can pull it off. And here's the thing. He could win in 5 seconds. It has happened before. So, like, we could get a very fast answer to the questions that we have.
Jorge Masvidal, he's got his manager with the BMF belt behind him. You get the champ in the red corner, and they're showing the Masvidal particulars, 5'11". You got Herb Dean as a referee. Herb does a decent
Are
job.
we going to get another, like, running Herb meme in this fight? Because I do enjoy those.
ViStar Veterans Memorial Arena.
Made 1K last night. Good job, Diego. Congrats.
Diego hitting it up. Pete saying in a good way, we're knowledgeable, you just need a catchy name. I mean, Pete, Fight Night Picks is... I thought it was catchy when I started it. Branding? There's branding all around us.
Branding?
I have F&P Blazers, for goodness sake. Like,
if you want branding, why don't you just go to this great place called FightNightPicks.com and check out the store where you can get some of the great merch that we have on right now, like this long sleeve t-shirt and the shirt Craig has on underneath his sweater.
Pete, we appreciate you either way. And really looking forward to this main event. Bruce Buffer's into it. He doesn't do the jump, though, and I wish he did, but it was the ACL.
I was going to say, much like Thiago Santos, the ACL surgery, it took something out of Bruce Buffer. He's not what he originally was. Now, I still like the Bruce Buffer stomp. That gets me just typed up enough, but it's not what he used to be, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal, our main event. This one is taking a while, but it should be a great one. Josh was saying Herb is always out of position. If you watch, he's on his heels. If you want a bad one, it was that Georgie Karhanian fight over with ACA where, like, he finishes the guy and then Herb just lets him, eat a couple of shots because, it was just for fun. SC Shoop saying a fight of the night. Bruce should get performance of the night. Ken Fitzsimmons, you like the name. You're thinking about getting a shirt. If you're on the fence, I ship it out as quick as I can. And Pete says he'll get one. Exactly, ACL twice. Yeah, listen, you get an ACL injury. That's that. And if you're Chris Weidman, you break your shin, maybe we'll see him back.
I was going to say, ACL would be best case scenario for Chris Weidman. I haven't seen an update. I haven't checked Twitter or my phone to even read if there's an update. So hopefully everything's good with Chris Weidman. Hopefully the news is all good there because, yeah, you never want to see... Like, I'm not a big Chris Weidman guy. I'll be very open about that. But you just hate seeing something like that. Like, just take everything out. Like, that's an awful injury, especially for a guy his age, and just really awful to see something like that for one of the, not pioneers, but just one of the mainstays of MMA, when we were both really getting into the sport, too. Like, to me, that's like seeing Frankie Edgar get starched by Corey Sandhagen. I take no enjoyment in that.
Oh, boy. Kamaru Usman going across the cage. These guys ready to go at it. Nobody holding them back.
I like that. Listen, it was kind of like when, Cain Velasquez fought JDS the third time, and they both went to the middle and pointed.
Oh, now we do.
Cool.
Now we're doing it. All right, that's fine. Matt, big time fight, main event, title on the line. Will they glove tap?
I don't know what the odds are, but
Not looking like it. We'll put the timer up as we get started. If you're just joining in, maybe pause your side. And then we're ready to go.
Masvidal, the hands behind the back. He's calm.
Jeff Culp is saying, I heard he just sprained his ankle real bad. Oh, Chris. Oh, boy. Big time main event fight feel. And we get set for our welterweight title fight between Jorge Masvidal and Kamaru Usman. It'll be interesting to see how this one goes. Because, again, Masvidal on one of the judges' scorecards was able to get a round in their first fight. But apart from that, it was a 50-45. Nice leg kick early from Masvidal.
I was just about to say, we're seeing Masvidal invest early in those leg kicks. And again, I'm going to quote Teddy Atlas when I say this. Water in the basement. For Masvidal, you know you're fighting a guy with, I'm going to say, historically strong cardio. You need to attack the body and the legs to try to cut down on that cardio early. Slow the man down before he can get running in the first place.
Masvidal, again, doing a good job. Usman looking to close the distance, lands a jab to the body, really trying to invest in the level changes early on.
And for Usman, I'm kind of curious what range he feels the most comfortable in. Because with Masvidal, let's be honest, out on the outside, you're not going to be comfortable striking with him. So for Usman, is it the southpaw? Is it the orthodox? And really, is it close in or is it at range where he's using his own jab? Because for Masvidal, he's going to be able to really start to land a lot of those leg kicks at that range.
Both guys starting to crack here early. Usman lands a nice right hand, but it's Masvidal with the left hook on the exchange there.
And Masvidal's hands are a little bit slow right now because he's worried about the takedown. And we did see Usman was really able to land a good 1-2 upstairs because of that. So that's something to watch out as this fight goes on.
We're about a minute 15 into our first round. Our main event for the title, Herb Dean doing a little skip to my Lou in the background.
Herb Dean. Do you think he has a Peloton?
Nice chest shot there from Jorge Masvidal.
The thing about Usman, too, when you bring up chest shot, Usman's really good at going to the body. That was something he did a lot in the Colby Covington fight that they talked about a little bit, but I feel like the story afterwards, just about the knockout, Usman is great at going to the body, and just naturally, he is a very heavy-handed striker, so really, if he does land, he's going to hurt you.
Masvidal looking like he's going to want to go for that counter. You have Usman kind of lunging into some of these shots.
You do, but again, that is kind of his style. With Usman, you know how heavy-handed he is, and just his power can kind of carry him in the stand-up. I think he has made improvements with his striking, but with Masvidal, it's really hard to just say, oh, Usman's going to go out there and outbox a guy like Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal's going to have to keep him guessing. Throw the kicks, throw the hands. Don't let Kamaru Usman get comfortable, because when Usman gets comfortable, that's when he can mix in his wrestling. That's really when it's game over for most guys.
We've got a bit of a stalemate, so to speak. Nice attempt at a flying knee from Masvidal, and Usman takes him down like a hot knife through butter.
Masvidal's doing a good job scrambling off his back and really trying to be offensive, but I couldn't imagine how physically strong Kamaru Usman must be to grapple with him. Like, the strength that man must have.
Gotta watch the shots in the back of the head. That was one to the back.
Yeah, but it's not to the back of the head. If Masvidal's the one moving his head when you land the shot, it's not an illegal shot.
Tricky one there. Referee Herb Dean in position to call it. You got Usman working from full guard here now. A little bit of a hook in there from Masvidal. He's trying to be busy off his back.
He is, but if you're Masvidal, why be busy off your back? You know you're not going to knock him out or damage him enough with just these glancing shots off your back. So if you're Masvidal, I would work more getting back up to my feet. I know when Bisping fought GSP, there was a lot of talk of, oh, I'm going to try to use my guard offensively. Not in a way to create submissions, but more in a way to damage my opponent. It didn't work out for him, and I don't really think we've ever seen a fighter win rounds and or even fights off of their back unless they're Brian Ortega or Charles Oliveira. So for Masvidal, I really think working up to your feet is going to have to be key.
The only recent fight I can think of, the Yana Kunitskaya fight here recently, where she was on her back, but she won against who was it?
It just doesn't happen often, especially with glancing ground and pound blows. Like, unless you're Tony Ferguson from the guard and you're really adept at throwing those elbows, it's just really hard to get that technique off.
Usman going for another takedown. Masvidal trying to get back up to his feet. Frank saying Masvidal looks a little jittery. He's landing, but I mean, it's tricky.
It is, and for Usman, like, this is your game plan. Tire him out. For Masvidal, you're really making him defend. That's the good thing about Usman. You're not just letting Masvidal stay in the center of the cage like you did in the first fight. If you make him work, he will get tired a lot faster.
Masvidal breaking. I mean, a good job early getting back up to his feet.
And this is where Usman's got to be careful. When Masvidal is able to defend a lot of your takedowns and you're feeling a little bit tired from going for all those shots, like, Masvidal can really open up on his feet.
Ooh,
big
nice
right hand. That hurt Masvidal. I think Masvidal's hurt.
Ooh, nice jab
land.
And
that's the thing. Usman has big power, I think. And I do think it takes guys, like, they got to get hit before they realize it, but he's got big power. He just can't get wild trying to land that shot. I know that's more of a boxing cliche than anything, but the worst thing sometimes is landing a great shot because then you get overconfident with it. And I think that's what happened to Usman.
Both guys really going after it. Masvidal looking to make up for lost time here. And you've got Usman that's really kind of trying to land these haymakers, if you will. And the nice thing from Masvidal, he's throwing great kicks to the knee area of Kamaru Usman.
And those are something that do add up as the fight goes on. You know, if Masvidal can get 5 or 6 of those in that second round, they're just going to keep on helping him as this fight goes on. Nothing really landing clean.
Jorge Masvidal, all about the knees and doing a good job when he blitzes as well as we close into the end of the first round. That was a good one.
It really was. And for Usman, he did a great job on the feet. He's going to do something for the kicks, though. He's either going to grab that kick and take Masvidal down off of one or check that leg kick like we saw earlier on in the night. Because for Masvidal, out at range, you can put your hands up and all that. He lost that round. He definitely did. For Usman, you got to wait for Masvidal to commit with his blitzes. And then once he does, that's when you go for the takedown. But Usman looping shots there in the chat. That's the thing. Once he landed that one right hand, I thought he hurt Masvidal. Not that he was out on his feet, but I just think Masvidal did a good job hiding it because he did kind of center himself fast. But that's when Usman got really wild with his shots, and that's what I'm a little worried about. If Usman goes in there in the next round like, oh, I hurt him once, I can do it again, that's when Masvidal's going to be able to counter him and hurt him bad.
Yeah, I mean, really interesting first round. Masvidal did a decent job, like Michael Roth says, investing in the lead leg. But for Usman, gets the takedown, wears out a little bit, and he had those 2 shots that really kind of sent Masvidal's head back in the first round.
And let's think about Usman. Like, could you imagine if his technique was the technique of, like, Vicente Luque on the feet with his power? You'd be dealing with such a dominant champ, really, just an unbeatable champ. And this is the thing. With Covington in the crowd as they show him now, I'm assuming he fights the winner. But that'll be an interesting fight too moving forward.
We'll have to see what happens. We get set for a second round. I've got a 10-9 Usman, but if you went 10-9 Masvidal, I'm not going to argue with you all that much.
I mean, he was on his back for a minute and a half, and he ate the biggest shot of the round, so I'd argue with you quite a bit, but it wasn't the most one-sided round you've ever seen.
Kali's with us from Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan got a big win there earlier on. From Valentina Shivchenko. Matt's got nothing.
No, I don't. She looked really good, but again, for Valentina, it's just a question mark moving forward. There's not that many interesting matchups moving forward.
Masvidal's corner slipping him in water. You gotta. It's just like baseball pitchers. Use a lot of hair gel. Really get that grip. Spin rate. For MMA fighters, soak that hair right up in water.
You might as well. And again, especially fighting a guy who is so grappling heavy, that's a conversation a lot when Maya fights. It's like, hey, if he takes you down the first round when you're both dry, that's when you're really in danger. Ooh, both guys open up with some right hands. And that's the thing. I think Masvidal's the faster guy on the feet, but the fact that he's always the one reacting to Usman's the reason that Usman's able to land first.
Wow!
He just flatlined it with the right hand.
Herb Dean, come on, man!
Masvidal's out.
Oh, boy.
Wow.
That was an Askren-level finish for the man himself.
He just flatlined him with the
Kamaru
right
Usman.
hand.
That just shut that crowd down.
Wow.
Holy smokes.
All right, Colby, settle down.
Kamaru Usman, oh, man.
Wow.
Anybody that says that guy's a boring fighter, you don't know. And if you didn't know, now you know.
Wow.
Kamaru Usman, 2 highlight reel knockout wins in 2 straight big performances. That hype train is over. That guy's the BMF.
Yeah, and Masvidal has a good chin. Like, that's the thing. It's hard to knock that man out. He just did it standing. Like,
wow.
Wow. Kamaru Usman. I thought he was good. Okay, here's the thing. So, wait. Usman was in Francis' corner, and we get hesitant Francis. Francis is in Kamaru's corner, and we get one punch, one kill Kamaru.
The question mark kick parlay hits again. Wow. You got Rude Boy Randy Brown, Kamaru Usman plus 111. And that's it. And I mean, for Jorge Masvidal, yikes.
He can't use a training camp as an excuse.
Yeah, that's it. Excuses are done. Go back to cornholing on ESPN.
Okay, settle down, Craig. Like, he's still a really good fighter, but wow. That was the statement that Kamaru Usman really needed. And he was saying, like, I'm going to finish him. He needed the performance like that. So, for Usman, like, that's what you do. On to the next. Colby Covington. You're probably not as excited for the rematch as you were about 5 minutes ago, but what a right hand. That was clean.
Oh, man. He cold-cocked that right hand, followed it up with the ground and pound. Herb Dean.
But no, Herb.
What are we doing, Herb?
He's okay. Wow. What a shot.
Oh, that right hand landed with authority.
Masvidal's out. For Kamaru Usman, maybe he will be a star, question mark? Just a clean
All
right
depends
hand.
how you follow it up on the mic, but Joshua Hart, Yeah, early stoppage. Well, I'll say this. There's an episode of early stoppage. It'll drop tomorrow morning. We already taped it. So you will get that. We taped it last night. It's a great one. But yeah, next week's episode, myself and John Franklin will talk a lot about that. And maybe the recap show comes back too. So there's that too.
That was a wild fight. That was just a wild fight card. Thank you guys for joining us on the Fight Companion. This has been an absolute ride.
Holy smokes. What a finish for Kamaru Usman. Hopefully he gets the due he deserves.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like, long may he reign, I guess, because goodness, it's going to take an absolutely Herculean effort to knock Kamaru Usman off.
Big time win for Kamaru Usman. Can't wait to see who's next. Probably Covington fight. But yeah, that was an insane fight. And what a night of fights. Like, this is probably one of the best cards we've had in a long time.
It really has been. 3 title fights, they all delivered, 3 finishes. Like, what an absolutely insane night of fights. And again, thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you check out the website, fightnightpicks.com. Joshua Hart doing the Lord's work over there on the website with the full card betting guides with all of the great stuff there. We're going to have more written content. You can check out the store. Support the sponsors, manscaped.com. 3 more months of Manscaped. Can't wait for it. And overall, just a great time. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. It's Betty by time in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. But Matt, as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.
Oh, we wow! Michael Chandler with a beautiful shot. Dan Hooker is down and he is hurt.
Oh! Chandler's got him rocked. Chandler by TKO. Wow! What a debut by Michael Chandler. UFC lightweight. Holy smokes! Oh! He blew down. Dustin Warren beats Conor McGregor.
Has done it! He put down! Stephen A. Smith, watch this fight! That's the best 155-pounder I've ever seen!
Oh, he knocks him down!
Backhand by Francis. He's got him hurt.
He's going after the finish. Big uppercut from Ngannou. Stipe engages.
Stipe hurt him.
Oh, he dropped him! Ngannou's your champion!
Wow.
Francis Ngannou's the heavyweight champion!
Stipe cold!
Wow! What a finish, man! 9-1 on the night, 8-2 in the question mark kicks parlay hit. Fight Night Picks. Wow!
Wow!
Francis Ngannou. Holy smokes! Oh man, give him the stool.
Who knew Patient Francis? A scary man.
Let's get into it. Wow!